Welcome everyone to episode 9 of the JustUs Podcast. I'm here with me, the boys, and our guests.
Hello.
Oh,
Hello there.
Now, do keep in mind that not all of us are present. Some of us may fluctuate in terms of who will pop up and who wouldn't, but that being said, we're going to do this in one take. So let's go into the Disney retrospective of Star Wars. Now, the best way to begin any conversations on Star Wars is our backstory regarding our own experiences with the franchise, the good times and the bad times. Now, who would like to start?
Well, I guess I could just go.
Alright, this is what you have to say, Dorm.
Okay, so, my time as a fan of Star Wars, I'd say, started back at about 1999 or 2000, the turn of the millennium. It was when, like, the sort of, around the time where, like, Phantom Menace came out, and after like watching the full trilogy, like I was like kind of introduced to like the original trilogy, and since then I just kind of fell in love with Star Wars. And then, like 10 years after Revenge of the Sith, there was the announcement came out for Force Awakens. So naturally, I was quite excited. Initially, when I saw the Force Awakens, I actually liked it. But the more I watched the Force Awakens, the more I realized it really wasn't a good movie. So, keep in mind, like I have been a fan since about like the turn of the millennium. It's hard to see when you're a fan of something and it goes to shit essentially.
Yep.
yeah.
Now, who else has had a prior experience with Star Wars before the Disney buyout?
I think my prior experience with Star Wars is that it was fun. It was a good time. It was before I was exposed to all of like the incessant prequel bashing. Which, to be fair, the prequels weren't perfect. No, they certainly were not perfect.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not even looking at you. I'm looking at you, Jar Jar. Oh.
And he's looking back at you too.
In fact, you could say that a lot of the events that happened in the original trilogy probably came about as a result of Jar Jar taking political power.
Yeah.
That is fantastic.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy at first, but then you realize just the potential he has as a character.
I don't know. To me, Jar Jar Binks was dead on arrival. Anyway, so when the buyout came around, I'll just say over how they've handled it so far, and I'll go into my opinions deeper a little later on.
Yeah.
I was disappointed, very disappointed. And that's my piece for now. So who's next?
I can go on.
Yeah, you can go, Turtle.
I like to save my thoughts for like.
Yeah. Who else like to talk?
When you guys go into your history about like being a Star Wars fan and all that.
Yeah, who else would like to talk about their history?
Well, I will. I'm gonna say this, like, I'm not like the most active Star Wars fan on the planet. That like when I was younger, I didn't really know that. I didn't really like watch a whole lot of it. I was aware of it, obviously, because I had tons of classmates who would talk about it. But I was I was mostly just a Power Rangers guy a Power Rangers kid when I was younger. But didn't actually take me until high school to start watching the original trilogy and the prequel trilogy and all that.
Yeah.
I like Star Wars, so there's that. Then I watched the sequel trilogy and Force Awakens I actually liked. Not Force Awakens. Yeah, was it Force Awakens?
Yeah, it was
No,
a
sorry,
Force
it was The
Awakens.
Last Jedi. Okay, Force Awakens I liked. The Last Jedi wasn't really that good. And Rise of the Skywalker, not so much. It's pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Yeah.
More on our thoughts
Yeah.
on that later.
Yeah.
All right. Tobbs, you want to go next?
I just want to say that I'm pretty much in the same spot as everyone else. When I was very young, I started watching, I think first the prequels, then the original movies. And obviously, when you're a kid, you just fall in love with all the ethos and, the special effects and the sounds. It's super attractive.
Yeah,
But I think what I really matured with all of it was when I watched Clone Wars, which basically solidified that love. So, yeah, that's my experience.
All right. Fred?
All right. Me?
Yes.
For me, it was all this starts with between 2006 maybe, or around there. As everyone else, I fell in love with this trilogy, and I guess like 5 years ago, I realized that there was an original trilogy. I thought, the original trilogy was another thing, a part of the prequels. So then I was like, oh, I didn't know it was connected to this. And of course, I had to rewatch all the movies and understand many things. And yeah, I found that it was something apart because I saw the troopers that were on Clone Wars. I said, well, I don't know if these are related to, but I have the fragments and images of the original trilogy. But I just, I didn't care about that versions because it was kind of old at that time. I thought that
Yeah, it's
You took all the pieces later than everyone else.
yeah.
wow.
But yeah, about experience. I'm not a big Star Wars fan. I really like the universe of Star Wars, but I'm not a big fan. But as a kid, as Stuff says, the songs, the characters, even Clone Wars, that is one of the best things that the franchise of Star Wars can make. It was great. I play with my cousins with lightsabers, and
Yeah, I mean,
it
who
was
hasn't?
amazing. Now, well, to be honest, I didn't even saw the last movie because I don't really care about the story arc. But I'm about to see that in many days, or maybe tomorrow.
Yeah.
But well, that's my part. That's my part.
All right, and Eternal.
Well, for me, like I had like a lot of like starting points for how I even got to just college. First, I think it was really when I met one of my closest friends like in my life. Right, but when I first met him, we were at a library one time and he was getting one of the old Star Wars novels, and it was
All right,
the
you got
time
Ernie.
from the episode. Oh,
Ernie soon.
okay.
Welcome aboard.
Hello there.
Sorry, Eternal.
Ernie.
Yeah, sorry.
Basically, like, this novel, like, I think it was, like, how all the other novels were, like, it tells stories for different characters, right? This one was for, I think, Han and Chewie, like it's where they had together. And then like we both grabbed the book at the same, like around the same time, like close to. And then like he was like, hey, how you like Star Wars? And I'm like, yeah, like a little bit. And then he was like, you want to be friends? Yeah. And then later on we just going to become friends. But because of that same time too, when I said I like Star Wars, like I wasn't even really that truthful. Like I had an idea of it, knowing like who the main characters that everyone talks about, like Luke or Yoda or Darth Vader. That's all I know. And then I just did my own research, just watching some videos on it, and I started watching. Like I went to like online websites of like reading about movies, right? Like kind of pirate movies, and I started watching first from the prequels. Because I already knew about the prequels growing up. I think like a lot of them like that came through Revenge of the Sith when it was coming to theaters. But yeah, like I didn't really take an idea what it was, and I thought it was cool. But then watching everything for the first time from Phantom Menace to Revenge of the Sith, I was amazed about just the universe as a whole, like the creation of a whole space opera that was his Star Wars. And then I finally got to watch the original trilogy. I love that more, and then knowing that that was the first real story that helped brought it up, like I was just in awe for how Star Wars is. And I went from being an appreciator to now just being like a true, like an honest fan for everything that is Star Wars. So for the sequel trilogy, like from that time, like I already knew how big Force Awakens was. Like everyone saw how the trailer came through, everyone was hyped about it. And then like for me, like I forgot when it was coming out. And I was with my other friends. We were watching Ride Along 2 in theaters. And I was just on plan from that day. And then when we finished, we just noticed the big just a big poster of Star Wars like in theaters from the Force Awakens. And we thought, we forgot Star Wars came like recently. So we just sneaked our way into the theater for Star Wars, and we watched it from there. We missed the part of the opening call, but we got to the point where it was in the battle of at Jakku, and it was right when Poe, I think I remember with Poe and BB-8 were about to go to the X-wing, and just from that point in the beginning, we just watched throughout there. And my first reaction watching it was just one of the funnest movies I've ever seen in my entire life. Just thinking at the time, so we were just hyped up, we were shocked, and we were just getting amped up. And even with what went on in the film, it was great. So from that point, I started having a good idea for Force Awakens. And then there was Last Jedi, which I watched by myself. I did love that too. I did have some mixed thoughts on it, but I was really in the enjoyment, because when you watch a movie first, your mind is kind of off, right? And you just really want to get the focus in the story, but yet there's a lot going on that you just very excited. So that was my mindset from that time watching in theaters, first day it came out. And same thing with Rise of Skywalker, which I still had issues watching even from the first time too when it came out. I still enjoyed it just as whole with my friends, and we were just it was great. But now thinking about it again and again, the sequel trilogy is a negative mess throughout.
It's something we're going to have to delve into a bit more. But adding on to the history of being a Star Wars fan, I'll go with my perspective. It kind of began when me and my cousins were excited for Revenge of the Sith. I mean, I didn't know a Darth Vader, I didn't know a Yoda or C-3PO or Chewbacca or all that sort of shit back then. Much like with Rai Guy, I was a Power Rangers fan, as well as a Spider-Man fan and other sort of stuff, SpongeBob, Cartoon Network, Disney. So the fact that me and my cousins were pretty much seeing Revenge of the Sith, and usually whenever we get together, we'd always watch the movie when it was on DVD, or play Battlefront 2, or even play with some of the toys like the Galactic Heroes. It was great. I even got myself a Darth Vader with an action feature that had a lightsaber and a shield that when you squeeze the legs, it would swing the lightsaber around. Over time, I got to delve into the other films, Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones, after getting the first Lego Star Wars game, which to this day I still love.
Nice.
Yeah, and I was honestly surprised when I found out that there was a secret level devoted to A New Hope, where Darth Vader and a Stormtrooper had to get C-3PO to get to Leia, and I was thinking to myself, wait, there's more to this? And I was like surprised that they actually had episodes 4, 5, and 6 already available. And I was thinking to myself, oh my god, there's more Star Wars than I thought. It was great watching the movies.
Exactly,
Yeah.
I thought too.
Oh yeah, because it's like, you know, how many other movie sagas do it backwards? No one.
Plus, the
Yeah.
fact that we live in a time period where we were pretty much grew up with the prequels and then got into the original trilogy. Like, I was honestly amazed at how great it all turned out when it comes to the awareness of the other films trilogy. And of course, I loved the
Mhm.
original trilogy. I loved A New Hope, loved Empire, loved Jedi, and I was quite happy with how everything was pretty much in one table for me, so to speak. I even got myself a Millennium Falcon that transformed into Han Solo and Chewbacca, as well as Lego Star Wars 2 and the GPA. I mean, what's not to love? Of course, you guys.
Also helped that they kept getting re-released every now and then.
Yeah,
Yeah, just the studio doing a lot of reworkings for either the visuals or like new
Yeah.
effects or new sound work. Like especially with watching, if you watch episode 4 again, you just start to see a lot of the same, like the newer technology with like the different 3D models of like little aliens or even the big animals that start walking past by when you see Luke and Obi-Wan and when they were about to go to Tatooine. Yeah, it's just that change. It just added a lot of mass for blocking from the moment from the original scene, but I mean, they wanted to add more to, I guess, but it just took it away.
yeah,
It did, but you know, at the same time, it's like they're still being released, you know, every now and then. Now, you know, were all the changes made to that trilogy good? No.
but like it's
But
nowhere
it
near
made people
as
more aware.
like it pretty much got me aware of the fact that there was another version. I mean, like honestly, I'll admit this right away that I kind of feel like I'm pretty much just upset about the changes just to join the bandwagon because something I was aware about back then. But like what I realize now is the fact that well, aside from me being upset about bandwagons, I am honestly happy to own the final quote unquote final releases of the old tapes in the form of a collection of the original trilogy.
That's cool.
Yeah. But of course, adding on to my past, I saw the Clone Wars, got to enjoy it. One of my favorite shows to watch on Cartoon Network at the time, along with Secret Saturdays and Batman Brave and the Bold. Admittedly, I got a bit upset when I found out that October 31st didn't have an episode devoted to the Clone Wars because, well, Goosebumps took over the spot. So I was thinking to myself, damn it. But yeah, I got to enjoy more Star Wars, whether it was just like seeing the games from YouTube clips, people stop motions on YouTube with the Lego bricks, and a lot of other stuff. You know, it was a different time back then compared to now.
Yeah.
And for those that heard about the purchase by Disney but didn't mention it yet, what do you guys think?
I have to agree.
I'm gonna put this as nicely as I could possibly put this. I was skeptical. Not gonna lie. I mean, if I'm honest, like Disney kind of has this like reputation of taking IPs that they purchase and just like ramming them into the ground.
Unless it's Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Yes.
Or even,
Saban bought it back.
yeah. And even then, look how that turned out, which is for a different topic for another day. Although, adding on to the subject, I guess we could say Dog is an example too.
Yeah, Doug. It's like they have the IP because they got it from Nick, but have they done anything with it since the 90s? No.
Yeah, it's
No,
weird.
no, it's basically just there, and I guess they're to taunt Nickelodeon. I don't know.
Yeah, it's a Disney
We
moment, as
Doug.
they would call it. But
Like, yeah, it's like Disney. It's like someone made a joke. Someone made this joke in my Discord server, but like someone mentioned like it's only a matter of time before we all refer to planet Earth as Disney, Earth, a product of Disney.
even then,
One day,
even then, like you're gonna have to like get
Give
the,
it time.
the signature rights from God himself. Now we're gonna talk about.
Like how long before something like say how long before like I don't know like Nintendo gets bought out by Disney?
Or the other way around.
Oh
Like, it'd be,
God!
that'd be terrible as fuck.
How,
like-
how further can we all imagine when Disney really does start taking over every major business?
All right, like
I'm
let's
sorry,
go back.
I'm
Let's
bad.
go back to Star Wars.
Yeah.
In terms of
great
my
idea.
opinion
Disney
regarding
is,
the purchase at first.
let me just Disney can be its own conversation entirely.
Yeah, because there's a lot to talk about. But on the subject of Star Wars specifically, I had no idea at the time. Like, I was just thinking to myself, oh, like they bought it out. Maybe they're gonna help make the franchise bigger again, or maybe they're gonna like support Lucasfilm financially. Because I know for a fact that they had rides in the past. But then I remember the fact that they bought out Marvel, and I realized, well, maybe like, Marvel didn't turn out too bad at the time. Maybe Star Wars will be the same. But, well, this is going to require us to go deeper into how they handle Star Wars. So why don't we start off safely with bringing up The Force Awakens? Now, I know some of you mentioned your thoughts on The Force Awakens, but for those that haven't, what do you guys think about it?
I went with you to see it, and I was excited to see it. And I'll be honest, I was kind of disappointed walking out that it was just a rehash of A New Hope.
Yeah.
Personally, I was like happy that we got it. I mean, at the time,
but then I guess over the years, as the years passed, I kept thinking to myself, if they wanted to make a movie that was so similar to A New Hope, why not just remake it?
or at least just put it out in theaters again.
Yeah,
That's what
exactly.
George
It's
did
like
back
we
in
waited
97.
10 years for a new Star Wars, and this is what they give us?
But like at the
Yeah.
time,
Honestly, it like from my part, because I was just really like I said, I was in excitement just like watching throughout the film, and I never even got to realize a little while on of how much it was a rehash of A New Hope, and just seeing how the similarities came through for the case of another deserter that is bound to have a new journey across their life with Luke and Rey, and how Poe and Leia were, the similar characters that had to give an important message or a new device that had to be given to a rebellion or resistance that would have led to a further mission to help stop a fascist military group like the Empire and the First Order. And just with how the Starkiller base, how the whole run to destroy it was the same thing like the Death Star trench run, how that went on.
yeah,
And like me thinking about even still, it's just sad of how Disney just had to keep the same concepts, but just try and make a few differences with the cast and making a whole different kind of empire when there's the First Order. But yeah, they just think, let's just make everything bigger.
Yes,
The Death Star was
like-
this, then Death Star 2 was a little bit of a bigger model, but it's still more grander and has a lot more power. But then the Starkiller base, instead of one planet, let's just make it shoot over 5 in one blast. Wow.
yeah.
Yeah.
I get it. They want to try
we need old character to die, so instead of Obi-Wan, it's Han.
Yeah,
Han
you know what?
is
Even that too.
right.
yeah. That's like
Even that too.
Yeah.
like I get
like-
it.
Ben. My name is not Ben. It's Kylo Ren, Dad. You don't understand me.
Father, replace the B with the R and add Kylo to the front. Ugh.
Like, I believe
My God.
I believe I said this before. Like, what they should have done with this trilogy is I believe at that point the story of the old characters should have been finished. Like that was kind of it for them.
Yes.
I
Like,
believe that the movie,
Everything was
just like
everything was
Captain
set
going to
for
Falcon,
everyone.
have him say
I
goodbye.
believe that the
We don't see
movie-
him again.
I believe
Keeps
these
everyone
movies
happy.
should have like. I believe these movies should have been like, if they were going to have a new cast, that's what they would. That's what they should focus on. They should focus on the entirely new cast, have nothing to do with the old ones whatsoever. That's what I think should have happened.
But we can get an idea that in the case of them bringing all the old characters back with being Harrison to be on again, and Carrie to be Leia, and then even Mark to be Luke, they just knew that if they were going to really attract the attention for everyone to the public, they knew that the original Star Wars fans was going to come into this movie expecting something out of that. So of course they would have brought him back. It's
Yeah.
just so aggravating how they put so much effort into keeping like the true same aspects from the old trilogy, like how the film was in the story, and even from the characters. They just put that a lot more as more than even their own new characters that they brought up.
Yeah, like, I get it. They
It's
want to
like-
try and like win over the old fans and like the universal appeal, because like you and I know about, like you all and I know about these other characters, but most amateur Star Wars fans, and I use the term amateur in a positive light, by the way, will only know about Luke Skywalker. We'll only know about Princess Leia, and I get that they want to have it on there so we can get some sort of nostalgia going on, but at the same time, it's like they really tried so hard, and people could say something similar about George and the Phantom Menace when he made it seem like a movie that's ready for everyone compared to Clones and Sith. But difference was that like the audience has changed from 1983 to 1999. Like George wanted to experiment with who would like watch specifically from each movie, whereas here you're kind of expecting them to make a brand new idea, maybe even take some inspirations, but make it seem new at the same time. So the fact that they pretty much copied A New Hope, not a bad idea, but at the same time, it could have been a bit more interesting beyond just that. Like, sure, the characters are new, and sure, the old casts are put in a different setting, albeit one that not everybody likes, but you get what I mean.
Yeah, pretty much.
I think it should have. This, I think they should have done. Like, this is just me personally, but what I think they should have done was look at things like, hey, this is an entirely new trilogy. See, this is going to take place after. It's going to take place after the original trilogy. But these are new characters, and these are new adventures, so we should focus on them. I mean, the old characters were great, but, their story was finished.
Yes.
Like, we saw that their story concluded.
Yeah, it's like if you want to show how their story connects with the new story, fine, but they missed the mark. So
Yeah, I mean, like, because like if they did want to bring all the old characters back, even with the arcs already completed, maybe they would have something like with the new characters, with their journey, with what they're going through. Maybe they could have them maybe somewhat aligned, and then they can just have them appear, like, and to help them in the mission, maybe, or to to share information, depending on what goes on. They could have had something like that for either with Luke or just with Leia, since with her being general of the rebellion, and even with a whole new resistance, apparently they could have had something with that instead of just them being entirely focused from each film, like we've seen.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
Or at the very least, like, do what we got around Star Trek Into Darkness, where the new Spock talked with the old Spock, and they got advice on what to do in a specific mission. That way, you'll get the obligatory fan service. Yeah, you're not offending everybody that grew up with these characters. Although, to be honest, Han Solo's treatment is the least offensive of the main trio, if you include him, Leia, and Luke.
Compared to Luke, which we have a lot to even give
Yes, but
Apparently the treatment for that is like apparently the treatment for like Luke and that The Last Jedi was so bad. Even Mark Hamill hated it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
but people will be quick to say that, oh, that was fake news somehow.
which more on that in a bit, because there's going to be a lot to like mention with that sort of discussion. But let's just conclude with the fact
He'll
that
outright. Like, the thing about Mark is that he'll outright state that he didn't like how The Last Jedi turned out.
yeah,
Mm-hmm. Because he's genuine in that case. He's like really honest about how he feels, especially in the case of a character that he's played for so long and that he has grown to love and appreciate, and has understood how much this character had brought an impact on so many people, including us. And
Exactly.
he knew that from that case, he had to make sure that he honored him the best he could. And just with what Ryan's take had done in that case, it just like projected a whole different perspective, which just made it a lot harder for what Mark had to even portray.
yeah,
But
it wasn't
yeah,
too
Mark
great.
still did great.
Which we'll get into more in a bit, but like, let's just conclude with the fact that The Force Awakens, despite it being a rehash number 1, is at least the best of the sequel trilogy, I guess.
Yeah, it is the most appreciated that anyone can say, right?
Yeah, like I guess
Yeah.
it brought everyone
Because
together.
we know that it's the first film to help bring like a lot more of the newer stuff. Besides just the new characters, a new storyline to follow on, carrying from the original. They have great visuals though.
Yeah,
Of course, with what ILM has done with being a visual effects company and them bringing the franchise back, like it brought a lot of new changes with like the look of the universe, the look of the newer models of certain like ships, like how the new Star Destroyers for the First Order was like, and how the Starkiller base was like, and how the actual like space attacks that were coming through for the battles between the X-wings and TIE fighters within the Starkiller from the final act.
yes.
Like those missions were great. Like those visuals,
Yeah, it looks
was
great.
done nice.
But the point is that this is like the least frustrating movie of the ones Disney has made. Bottom line.
Yeah, but because they played way too safe, that's the way
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, even if they played it safe, at least they accomplished stuff in at least bringing fans together. Now, of course, there are certain debates regarding the treatment of certain characters and all that sort of jazz, but hey, everyone was happy at the time.
Yeah, it was pretty much peaceful if you compare it now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But before we get into the next movie, which isn't even a sequel, let's talk about Rebels. Now, I'm sure not all of you have seen Rebels, or if you have, it's got to involve the legacy characters, but that being said, what do you guys think about the show, even if you've seen it a very small amount?
It was great. Like,
Yeah,
seeing how this show turned out compared to how the sequel trilogy came out, it's like, why couldn't we have something more like Rebels? It's like they're able to do new characters, but sometimes you'll have older characters introduced in, and your storylines flow right into there without them having to hammer in the old characters. Like, the old characters aren't quintessential, unlike in sequel trilogy.
Yeah.
yeah, totally.
But as a show on its own, like, I'll admit that, well, some people might agree that it is not as good as the Clone Wars. I mean, it's got, initially, like, it kind of comes off as more of like a show that's meant for kids, especially if you're either a Clone Wars fan for as long as it's been around, or someone that thinks new cartoons suck no matter what. But at least the quality of the show has increased over time, which,
Yeah,
of course, as you mentioned, is not the same that could be said for the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, I'll never forget this one scene. I think it was in season 1. It was when one of the Inquisitors stole Caden's lightsaber, and he gets it back, and he's got Ezra's lightsaber on him, and is about to do the
Anakin, Count Dooku head slice on him, and then the Inquisitor just, lets himself drop and die.
Oh boy. So there's no do it.
Nope.
no
0 out of 10.
in the back to just whisper, do it.
Either way, though, like, I can't really fault Rebels nowadays. I mean, like, sure, back then you could easily say that it's just an inferior cartoon, but at the very least, it had an identity of its own. I especially like the new team of characters. Admittedly, like, some of them could be a bit cliche, but I can't fault them at this point. Like, you got Ezra, who's the typical, like, young protagonist.
Gladden.
You've also got, like, the names are a bit hard for me to remember since it's been a while since I've seen the show, but on top of them having, like, different identities are also quite, like, pretty distinct in terms of performances. And, if you want to show that it's all about, like, presenting diversity, like, you got two girls, but they don't try to steal the thunder too much, and if they do, they're not trying to rub it in your face, like, hey, these are women, if you don't like these characters, then you suck, like what we get with certain writers nowadays.
Yeah. Insecure writers.
Very insecure writers.
Oh, yeah.
But that's not the same that could be said for Rebels, because they're not so bad.
Yeah.
On a side note, I have to say that while the Clone Wars itself certainly does have more of a legacy that Rebels can't quite reach, I could definitely say that it's the second best cartoon that we've gotten since, well, the Clone Wars itself. Because I'm going to be honest with you guys, like, Star Wars doesn't have that many remarkable shows outside of the Clone Wars and the regular Clone Wars from 2004. Well, before we even got those two, I mean, we pretty much had, like, old cartoons like droids, Ewoks, but they're typical Saturday
It
morning
was
stuff.
the Gendy Tartakovsky version of Clone Wars, which was pretty good.
Yeah, like that was the
Agreed.
Clone Wars before the Clone Wars.
Oh, yes.
Like, before all that, we just pretty much had the 80s cartoons, which were more your typical toy commercial-driven stuff compared to what we got since 2004.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, yeah, I could definitely give the writers of Rebels as well as Clone Wars and the Clone Wars a lot of credit for definitely making these shows seem less toy-driven and more story-driven.
Yeah, exactly. Because honestly, if something's more story-driven, wouldn't that make people and kids more inclined to get figures based on them?
Yeah, but not in a way that's pretty much like what we got when it comes to, say, the 80s.
Yeah, that was very toy-driven.
Yeah, like nothing
Like
wrong with making
He-Man,
merchandise.
anyone, Transformers.
Like nothing wrong with making profit off of your show as long as your characters are okay with turning into a marketable plushie. But nowadays, we expect some great stories, and that's what we got with the Clone Wars and Rebels, as well as the original Clone Wars.
Mm-hmm.
But jumping off from the TV screen to the big screen again, it's Rogue One time.
Yes. Okay. Okay. I don't know about you guys, but like I'm probably one of the only. I know I'm not one of the ones, but like I'm just probably. I don't know if any of you guys from here. I just love Rogue One. Out of everything that Disney has brought up, awesome. Like out of everything that Disney has brought up, besides Mandalorian, Rogue One is my most favorite, and it's not even part of a trilogy. It's literally a separate spin-off from the whole story, and yet it tops everything. In my case, it tops Force Awakens, Last Jedi, Rise of Skywalker. It's just there's so much I can share about. But I don't interrupt.
Yeah,
That's fine.
like just
Okay.
for like
Good, bro.
I guess that's what I got out of that speech.
Yeah.
Sorry. I just like because I just go back to Rogue One more times than any of the other films. Like way too often. there's just a lot of appreciation. I'm still talking. You. Okay, I just realized. Okay, there's just like a lot of appreciation that I can take out of it. In the first case, it's how we actually gotten more contact from with the opening call from A New Hope, right? Knowing about the rebel spies, how except from one of the first parts paragraph of how rebel spies were able to take the Death Star plans to return to rebellion. Now that is a starting concept that is so great that like I bet many fans like from then on were having to think of how would that story be like. Rogue One, a Star Wars story exists, and it just brought a spin-off that was amazingly brought to have characters that came off out of the same purpose of following the same cause as the rebellion had, to see how the storyline goes on with Jyn Erso or for Cassian, and just seeing how that importance goes on. And because the film really sets off a lot for the case of rebellion, because we already had that focus a lot from the original trilogy, but we see a little bit more in the back row since Gareth Edwards, the director, he made sure to try and keep the story as kept from the original, to honor how well the rebellion army was like and how oriented, how much they kept the focus of hope in the cause, but they were trying to make sure they show from the gritty side of how more issueful the rebellion had in their moments against the Empire and how they had to take dark turns, right? And we see that moments like with Cassian when he was getting information about, the defector, which we knew was Riz Ahmed's character, which I just forgot. But like of how he killed off like the man that had one arm, right? And when he told him about the Imperial engineer that was the creator of the Death Star and how he had to kill him off when they were about to get infiltrated from the stormtroopers, just that moment from the scene right there with Cassian having to realize in his action and then just having to escape right after, that was the idea that was set of how this was a gritty Star Wars movie we were getting in.
Yeah, quite a lot to mention.
It's a lot that goes on from this film in that case for how like that tone was set from Gareth's way of direction. It was a great turn that he's done, honestly.
Alrighty, now who else has thoughts on Rogue One?
I think he summed it up pretty good.
Yeah, he actually did excellent. Yeah, definitely.
Thank you guys.
Yeah, definitely. He said that.
I think he summed up most of my. Okay. The thing that I'd add is that it kind of shows that I don't think you need to rely so heavily on like established characters in order to keep your audience's attention. I think it proved that if you can introduce new characters and do it effectively, then I think you've got something fans will love. I think the problem with so many characters and new characters in Star Wars these days is that so many of them don't stand on their own.
Unfortunately,
Jyn Erso honestly doesn't really have this problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Jyn Erso, I believe, as a character can stand. I believe can stand on her own 2 feet.
And especially with them not having to force too much of female empowerment in her case, because we just know that she pushes herself to show how strong she is to handle against any force like the Empire or with the regular rebels that were coming through from Saw Gerrera's faction. Like we just see how strong she's able to handle from her way in the galaxy because of how all her life she has been in the conflict of the war between the rebellion and the Empire, and because of her whole life was set up in that conflict with her being the daughter of an Imperial officer, and how that case had shown a lot more for her to try and become a lot more stronger and try to keep herself well while there is a whole fascist and conflicted universe that is all around affected badly because of the Empire. But she shows how well she's able to conquer out from those obstacles and how well she tries to handle herself until she meets the rebellion and she's had to do her mission to try and find her father. That brings a lot more issues in her case to show her vulnerability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Not a
I
bad
think
job if I.
what
if you
I
ask
think
me.
it shows is that this it kind of shows like a cinematic, like a just sort of storytelling trend that I'm really getting kind of tired of. It's the fact that they have to force this kind of sort of female empowerment crap.
Yeah,
There's
and
nothing
yeah,
wrong. There's nothing wrong with writing your characters as your female characters to be strong. In fact, strongly encourage. However, the problem comes is that while they show their strengths and that's important, you also have to like with the male characters, highlight their weaknesses too.
Right.
Exactly.
I mean, do you know how many? It's like, does anyone remember like watching Star Wars and seeing the amount of times like somebody like Luke would get his ass kicked?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was not prepared in Empire Strikes Back.
Definitely not. I mean, he got his ass
Yeah.
beaten by Vader.
And that's being nice about it.
Got his hand chopped off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I think the thing is, when you, I guess if I should clarify for people who might misconstrue what I say, I have nothing against strong female characters. I really don't. What I have a problem with is forcing this female empowerment to the point where it degrades every other character. Where she just has
Basically, Jesus
she's
2.0.
perfect,
Yeah.
and she's perfect. She can do nothing wrong, and that's a problem. That is a fundamental problem when somebody tries to write a character like that, because it essentially tells the audience they're essentially forcing you to like this character. They're shoving a character down your throat. And ironically, the more that you try to get people to like a character, the more they don't like them.
Very
Yeah.
amusing how that turns out.
It's like it's like that just you're just making a Mary Sue out of that character. No one's who like it's like anytime because the thing is I complain about certain characters and Toku or other stuff for being incompetent, but the thing is it's like you don't have to write them as a Mary Sue. They just have to be drawn,
Likeable.
have their own flaws. Yeah, and likable, essentially.
Right.
and Jin is honestly a likable character. I mean,
Oh, she is.
we
Yeah.
can agree with that, right?
I liked her, no
Yeah, and
problem.
it's like she's flawed. We see. It's like
Oh,
we
that's
see
a good way
that
to be honest.
Goku.
Yeah. Although from my experience, sadly, like she and K2 Esso are the only characters I remember from that movie whose names I can remember at the top of my head, because unfortunately I don't remember everyone else's name. And it's funny how it's very amusing that aside from them appearing more often, like I know the names of Finn, Rey, Poe, and all that, but I don't know the names of these other characters. Even though Rogue One is not a terrible movie, but from my experience,
I still pretty much know most of those characters in my head. That's just how too much I got into Rogue One. I got to a point of addiction where I started just watching the visual effects breakdowns of throughout the film. Which, by the way, I want to say this here too. Rogue One has probably the best visual effects out of any Star Wars movie that was put out from Disney.
Yeah.
Hands down.
I mean, I
My case,
suppose.
that's true because you can see the immensity of of the ships and all that things that it's just if you're in the field on the battlefield as all these people that were fighting on the beach, and you feel that menace because they're no more than 30 people, I guess, 20. I don't know
Yeah.
how many of them were there, but But all the ships were like giants among them.
Yeah, they showed like a real presence out of it, and just from the detail of how they kept it as photorealistic as they could out of the original models from the original trilogy, making sure that the timeline is kept right from A New Hope. That was where just the pacing, the detail was coming into clutch, thanks to Ireland. I just love everything that they've done since, and especially with the creation of the Death Star. Even though we've already seen that them pre-build from Episode 3, right? Just from the end, how they were setting up everything with the Empire coming in, with Darth Vader being created, and then we just see across from that one scene with Palpatine and Vader watching over from the Death Star being created. We actually get to see that full construction set up, but yet the Death Star is only like 99%. That 1% of it being completed was just seeing how the actual effect of the blast was from Jeddah, like from the city that Jin and Cassian went in to find Saw Gerrera. The amount of destruction that was shown from just that one blast, even when it wasn't 100% planetary destructionable, that made it one of the most death-defying, like, shock and awe sequences ever brought through all the Disney Star Wars films. Just seeing how slowly wrecked the core of the planet was like about to be, and seeing how the explosion slowly brought the horizon out, like how K2SO said from the 1T. I'm trying to get the context out, but there's a problem on the horizon. There's no horizon.
Exactly. It's like a typical live-action Disney one-liner, but hey, like at least it's a warning. But
it was a one-liner that we can bring the Fallout meme of everyone like that.
Yeah. And I know people already like this stuff, but this is just me personally. But like, since we already mentioned how everything tried to be so close to A New Hope, Sarah, that's ironically a problem I have with the movie because, I already complained about how Disney tried to copy A New Hope too much with The Force Awakens. It's a bit of a different reason here with Rogue One because it's just way too on the nose, to be honest. Like, they really tried so hard to win over fans that act like it's A New Hope or nothing when it comes to Star Wars.
Yeah, but probably for you're right on that, because probably in that case, like if I talk about Rogue One with anyone, they would say how it's a lot of push to the idea of fan service that they've done.
Yeah.
Like with us seeing.
I mean, it takes place right before A New Hope, so
I get
makes
that.
sense.
I get that.
It makes sense in cases of setting up A New Hope, especially in the end with with Reno, the best scene with Vader coming and crashing the party and slaying every rebellion soldier, and then getting to make sure that one soldier makes it out with the Death Star plans, going into the blockade. That escape that starts off with the scene in A New Hope, the Star Destroyer attacking. That is one fan service that we can all and cannot deny, and we can agree, because that helps actually set up from what the opening crawl says. Rebel spies get the plans from the Death Star.
I get it. They want to try and win fans over. But, like, man, is it extremely on the nose. It's like they're saying, oh, you want more New Hope? Well, here's more for you. And, like, I hate to be I hate to be a dick. Because I know, like, Rogue One isn't a terrible movie. But, like, they really, really want you to know that this is a prequel to A New Hope. It's, like, so damn hard. And a level I've not seen in anything else aside from probably the way Neo Saban era tried so hard to mimic MMPR, which, again, discussion for another day. And, I was saying to myself, like Darth Vader appearing, not a bad thing. X-Wings and TIE Fighters, not terrible. Darth Vader destroying or killing all the Rebel Troopers, hey, that's awesome. One of the coolest scenes ever.
Yeah.
But, like, stuff like the way they try to mention the Death Star plans, like, I know that's the idea, but it's like, wow, they really want you to know everything about the opening title crawl. And Princess Leia showing up, it's like, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, kind of unsettling. considering the fact that it's just a CGI recreation. And I'm just thinking to myself, oh shit, they're gonna do this. They're gonna do this with Star Wars moving forward, aren't they?
Yeah, true.
Yeah. And it was hard for me to lay out why I wasn't so much of a huge fan of Rogue One. And as much as I don't like to have other people's opinions match up with what I think, Red Letter Media's video on Rogue One regarding all the fan servicey bits kind of summed up why I wasn't a huge fan of it. I mean, they pretty much go around and yell stuff like, "Oh, X-Wings! Death Star! Grand Moff Tarkin!"
I am the one with the Force Awakens with me.
ATSTs! Star Destroyers! I'm gonna come! I clapped when Darth Vader turned on his red lightsaber. And the line that they said at one point, did you clap at any of the new moments and memorable characters? Were there any? No. Those lines made me wonder, oh yes. Now I see what the problem is with Rogue One, in my opinion. They relied so hard on the fan service, I kind of forgot about everything else. Aside from Jyn Erso and K2SO, I hate to be mean because I know some of you guys like Rogue One, but me personally, I just can't stop thinking to myself, they really want us to basically love them so hard by making New Hope the very important switch. I know some people are going to say stuff like, oh, what about Revenge of the Sith when they were making a Death Star and setting it up? The thing was that the main point was just the downfall of the Republic and the transformation of Anakin Skywalker into Darth Vader. You know, the final scene.
Yeah, it's like Palpatine really had this mapped out.
Yeah.
I mean, in the case of prequels, like for Rogue One, the only real connection we had, besides with, starting with the Empire, was with Senator Organa coming in, even though his little first scene was just him appearing, and then the soundtrack comes in with playing the motif of the Force theme when he just comes in after the conversation with Jyn, talking with admirals from the rebellion to start up the mission. That was just the only connection that I remember, I think, from the film was to the prequels for Rogue One. And it wasn't bad, but they hadn't come to the movie, which was nice, to establish that connection that, the prequels still existed. But, it was really the idea with him coming in. It just said, it sets the whole idea of fan service that was just too much on the nose, which I agree with.
And it's just the fact that, I know, people are going to be upset at me, like I said, for bashing this movie, but not Revenge of the Sith for the connections. But it's just way too close to stuff like that. Kind of like how Samurai Megaforce, as mentioned earlier, tried so hard to mimic MMPR. Even when they tried to step out of it, it failed. And on a more personal level, it kind of reminded me of how Bumblebee was all about the nostalgia for G1, but everything else doesn't get as much attention, aside from the occasional reviewer saying, oh, it's so cool, it's so nice and wholesome, and then they just go back to praising it because nostalgia. And that's how I just feel about Rogue One.
Yeah, I know. There's still a lot of that same hate that even fans will talk about. But even from its original case for how the characters were, they still made sure to keep a good balance with, even if when they were doing fan service, they wanted to make sure they actually kept the stories for each character well established, which they did a lot for Jyn, of course, since she's the main. And with Cassian was, the one character to help show what a soldier going through a conflict of war was like, in the case of him being a rebellion soldier. And he brings the idea a lot with, like I said, with the gritty take of war that goes in even with the Star Wars universe. Cassian showed that part well because of how there was moments for him where he knew of how regrettable it would be in the decision of taking action that is so inhumane, like how he was ordered from one of the generals to not actually capture Galen, but to kill him. And from that case, he was in the moment about to when they went to Edo, right? The planet from the station where they actually found Galen. And when he was about to take the shot, it was just that moment when he just gives up from looking in the scope of his sniper. He just gave up. He just knew he realized in that moment how terrible he would have felt of taking that shot, and because of how he didn't want to go further into his own darkness as being a soldier, which shows that he has a lot of issues from him too, which is another idea that I like from the story as a whole, because they've kept a lot of focus for him, as they did with Jin, and even with the side characters, even if they weren't as well focused too, because they were just there for the case of being, part of the final battle. But they still made sure that each of them had a part in it. Each of them was, making sure there was contribution to the story and making sure that even the final act came off well, which is why the final act was just one of the best parts of the film too, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's quite a lot to talk about with Rogue One. Most of it positive, some of it a bit negative.
I'll just say one thing though, because I don't know, like, this could be an unpopular opinion, but when it comes to the score, because we know John Williams didn't score this, right? It was Michael Giacchino.
It wasn't bad.
What do you guys think of the score?
It wasn't bad. Like, it did what it needed to do, and I didn't hate it.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
It was good.
And with that covered, I think we can go into the video game side of things, because I forgot about Battlefront 1. We might have to combine this with Battlefront 2 because, well, honestly, they don't play that differently from one another. Thing is that Battlefront 2 has more fan service, whereas Battlefront 1 has more microtransaction frustration. So who likes to begin with the Battlefront game discussions?
Not me. I haven't played it.
Well, from my experience, the first Battlefront game from 2015, on the surface level, isn't terrible. But what I don't like is the fact that they try to make the game like this big deal, yet you get an incomplete package, and it started to make me realize a big frustration that I have with video games nowadays, where they raise the prices more, yet you have to pay even more content for DLC. Now, is DLC in general a bad thing? No, it's not. But it shouldn't be the only way for you to get additional content. Sure, there's some stuff you can unlock in the meantime within the game, but does that mean you have to pay additional content constantly? I don't think so. And
No.
again, like, my memory with the Battlefront games is kind of fuzzy, but it's not so hot. Which,
from my experience, I didn't get to play for the first Battlefront. I just seen many videos on it, especially with in the time of release, because we know that it came in the same time as the Force Awakens, right? So 2015 was really the year of how Star Wars had a whole build up of anticipation and a lot of hype with the movie coming in. Even the movie came out after the game, or no, actually I think it was. Well, wasn't it before or after the? Because Force Awakens came December. So wasn't Battlefront before?
Yeah, Battlefront came out a few months before The Force Awakens did, which, not a bad thing. But even if it wasn't tied into a specific movie, it definitely had the sort of mindset of being so close to a movie's release that it focused more on just the name rather than the overall quality. And again, not a fan of when they focus too much on the DLC, but that's just me. Like, what else can I say? I'm just a schmuck that likes to play older video games.
Yeah.
And Battlefront 2, well, I guess it's better than the first game because of the fan service and all the mods. But, again, still need the DLC issues. And, of course, this is EA we're talking about, and I don't want to go into my rant on video games nowadays, now do I?
Yeah, but I haven't played any Star Wars games yet, so I can't really say. But I was actually about to say I actually have to go too. So
all right.
Sorry.
You can hop back in any time you like, as long as you're still around.
Right.
But yeah, like, do what you got to do. But if you feel like it, you can come back in, so long as we're still recording.
Thanks. Sorry if I didn't get to say much again.
All right, it's understandable.
That's good, bro. That's good.
Yeah.
All right.
Later, guys.
later.
See ya.
Yeah, right.
And right, so now we've got, well,
I mean, for Battlefront 2, well, I'll say something too, because like for that game, that's the only one I actually have, and I even still play it. Like I had it since it came from the release, and it was within its worst time, right? With how it was just constant glitches going in from the servers, where the EA
yes.
transaction deals was just as worse, and how the game was a whole pay to win system instead of an actual enjoyable experience for the Star Wars universe. Again, as the
Exactly.
sequel from the first game. But just like from that case, I still kept playing it, even when servers were bad, which they were, because I remember in my time playing at maybe like, for example, I played Starfire Assault or Galactic Assault, right? And I'm just playing like through the prequel era where I'm the Separatist army and then I'm at the like planet of thieves, and I'm just like trying to enjoy my way, making like my way accomplishing the game missions, trying to take out a certain tank or whatnot, right? And those times they were fun, but just there was a lot of issues with the servers I had, and I had to uninstall and I had to reinstall again a little later. But like until I just had to get used to it as it is. But now it actually did improve, like in my opinion. But so like it's a little bit better now, even with the added DLC that came to, even though it was overly added, in the case of how they just try to make sure there was a lot of fan service in that case. But the game overall, it still has like some issues with, even in the case of how it didn't brought up the right kind of DLC. Like they did brought a lot, but there were just some missed opportunities that they could have gotten, like maybe if they brought like some more appreciated Clone Wars characters like Ahsoka in the mix.
Yeah.
That would have been very cool.
Still though, like it's just one of those things about the way the games were handled, and yeah, I know there's fans of it, and I know like some gameplay of it made the game seem more bearable, but I'm not gonna lie when I say that I've seen better, and I still miss when video games were all about the fun and not so much the DLC being the only thing. Like I said, DLC, not evil, but at the same time, you can make it evil by making it unbearable.
It's true.
Oh, yes.
So, with the video games, Battlefronts 1 and 2 now covered, I guess we can talk about another subject matter, that being Forces of Destiny now. Who has heard about Forces of Destiny?
I have.
It's the next
for
one,
sure.
right?
It's the one that shows off like the female characters, and to its credit, like they've definitely given quite a bit of representation from like the typical, like the standard series we've gotten. Aside from Leia and Rey, they've added in Padme, Ahsoka. They've added in the two female characters from Rebels, whose names I don't remember, and I feel stupid for that.
I don't remember either, so I'm with you on the same boat.
Like, to their credit, they definitely went beyond just the Disney sequel trilogy and original trilogy female characters. But what do you guys think of Forces of Destiny as a show?
I've watched through it, like probably. I mean, like I didn't watch all of it. I've seen like at least 4 episodes following for each character. Like I've seen with Ray with BB-8, and then those with Leia from Remission, and then Padme. And I think the other, it was also one of the characters from Rebels, but I mean, like they were enjoyable, I guess, in the sense of how they just brought, like exciting or fascinating adventures that they had, very classic, like the Saturday cartoon type. But like overall, it was just something that, I mean, like not unnecessary, but it was something that they didn't really have to like. I guess not force overall with showing how cool they are, but they still did an enjoyable take in it for making sure that they had fun adventures and that it was an enjoyable additional part of the characters to see. But that's just my opinion on it, because I don't really have much ideas in the case.
Yeah, I can definitely agree that on its own, like, yeah, it's kind of like Scream's toy commercial, but for girls. because it did make dolls based on the characters, but it's inoffensive. I can't really hate it too much.
Oh,
And like I said, I
yeah.
applaud them for adding more than just Leia and Rey, because they know for a fact that there's other female Star Wars characters that exist, and ones that are just as good, if
Yeah.
not even better. Because I like Padme and I like Ahsoka quite a bit. They're some of my favorite female characters, aside from the typical other A-listers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we've gone through quite a bit regarding the discussions of the past few movies we've gotten, as well as the 2 games and the 2 cartoons. Now let's go into some of the more controversial shit. That being The Last Jedi. Oh boy!
Shit.
Oh shit! Here
Where do
go.
we even
That
begin
piece
with
of
this
shit.
one?
That piece of shit. Fuck that thing.
Wanna go first?
Fuck it to hell. Awful. Absolutely.
Look at how much we're breaking down already just from the call. Like that's how crazy The Last Jedi is.
Yeah, it's just
Okay. Who wants? I mean, I don't even want saying it like starting, but who wants to start at least
All right.
giving?
let me go
That's
first
all
on
to it.
this. Okay,
Oh
like
yeah, for sure.
I understand for a fact that at this point in time, hating The Last Jedi might be considered a meme by many. They might either be made fun of for either hating something from a franchise you like, or for outright going against a director, Ryan Johnson, all these years later. Or if you hate this movie, then that means you hate women, which honestly isn't even that true. Like, there are other reasons you might hate.
Yes, I hate women. I absolutely hate women. Women are vile. I hate women.
Oh
I hate
no!
all women.
We're gonna get canceled.
Oh, bro.
Women
Like-
are awful. I hate women.
Like, the point is that
Censor.
like
Women.
discussions like this, are like, if you don't like X, then you're this sort of person. Like, stuff like that is what like killed my excitement for The Last Jedi when it came out, because like there are other things I was like interested in. Like, I wanted to see how Finn could come back. I wanted to learn more about these other characters. I want to see what Luke can
No, you don't need to know that. We don't need to answer those questions. We need to subvert expectations.
do. And
What expectations? I don't know.
The literal
Exactly.
mentality of Ryan Johnson, everyone. That's just how
Jesus
it
fucking
was.
Christ.
I know. Just even thinking about. Okay, like, do you guys want to just like pros and cons? Like, are we gonna like be talking about the cons?
okay, let's just start off with the pros.
Let's do the pros
Yeah.
since that'll be quicker.
Okay,
Right.
is it okay if I can start?
Let me start off with like this.
Sure.
Okay, so in the case for The Last Jedi, oh my god, there is still pros that come. Besides just, perfect sequences, besides just like, I guess like the best subversion that Ryan had did. One thing, it's in the technical sense. It's of all the films in the sequel trilogy, or like this is bold for me to even say, maybe even from any other Star Wars film, this film has the best cinematography.
I mean, it's not a bad thing to say. Like,
It might be so much to say because any other Star Wars film can be appreciated how well it was handled, the shot, how well the pans are going down from the looks of planets from either us and the perspective of space, or even just with character moments, or seeing how well the space battles were oriented, or how it was set up. But just with what Ryan Johnson did, or the cinematographer, like I did research on him already, Steve, and because he does most of Ryan's films beforehand, before getting into Star Wars, and like from his side, he honestly does some exceptional work in some cases. The stills that were brought, like from certain moments, like mostly like the one shot I remember was with Luke and Yoda, right? And how he kept the stills right between just them in the conversation, and from the moment when it was the Sacred Jedi text tree, when that was burning, like because of Yoda, just that one still, it just brought like a very nice, calm filmmaking sense that you get the idea that comes from Ryan, and how much his vision was brought within the Star Wars universe, how he makes sure that it's in the filmmaking sense of how well it should be shot, how well the story will be brought up just from the stills, just from the calm moment that goes into the text, not by a rush of action-packed moment. It is still in The Last Jedi, but with shots that was handled, just like quick pans or the very slow, eagle-eyed look that was going in from when you see the Millennium Falcon or when you see TIE Fighters chase. It was done right. So that's all I'll say. Even some shots of Kylo Ren, like from his moments, like from the film, like how he was smashing his own helmet out of rage, and seeing how that came through, and seeing that close pan of him, and then back to the helmet when he had his first smash, and back and forth again and again. And the last shot with panning close to his smashed helmet. That was just when I got a real sense watching first time. This movie shot dopely.
Yeah.
I can't lie.
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah,
cool
that's true.
stuff.
Yeah.
In fact, my favorite
really
shot in the
like that.
movie is seeing Ben Swallow, the man himself, in that one scene when he was talking with Ray. Because,
Yes.
oh boy,
The
that
fourth
chest
strike
though,
call.
that chest though is just like, mwah, it was beautiful. Like perfect body
yeah.
right there.
We thank a lot though for Ben Swallow for existing, for the
Yeah.
Oh,
case
yeah.
of
That's
memes,
another
for the
pro.
case of the story.
I love me some Marines man titties.
Yeah,
Oh,
like,
yeah,
that's
damn.
another
yeah,
pro
yeah.
right there. Marines, man, titties. In terms of another pro I can think of, well, the music itself is, it's Star Wars stuff.
But for the score, it's good.
Yeah,
Of course, John Williams' music
Yeah,
is
like,
beyond
it's good.
exceptional from every film.
Like-
Even in cases for like for the film itself, like there are certain character moments that was masterfully chosen. Like, I watched this video from YouTube. Like, do you know this YouTuber named Scriptfiller Productions?
no.
So he basically does like little essays for like mostly DreamWorks films or from
Yes,
other
just like
blockbuster
most of
films. Like, he
YouTube
talks about The Last
nowadays.
Jedi a lot, and he's popular on it. So he did this video with this other YouTuber named Sideways, who's an expert of analyzing film scores and then how well oriented and how masterful the scores were and how well the history was out of making the score. Like, and they were talking about, like, they made a video on together, right, called the best, like, the top 9 best like Star Wars scores from John Williams himself. And when they were on The Last Jedi, there were moments that I couldn't even gather myself when watching the film. Like when Luke met Leia for the first time after we've seen a long time since Return of the Jedi, and then like when he opened his hood, the Force scene comes in, right? But then when
Yeah.
they were about to have their first conversation, like the slow melody of Luke and Leia's theme, that was the same constructed that John did for the Return of the Jedi. That was played again, but just in a different take, and the melody was a lot more slower and a lot more calmer to bring a lot with the presence that they both brought each other from their scene together, showing how well that chemistry still exists.
Yeah,
And that melody
pretty
was
much.
played so beautifully listening again, because I watched Last Jedi even recently, and just hearing how the score was made, like just in that theme, it was one of my favorite moments of the film.
Right.
That's a pro in my case.
Yeah, on a side note, as much as mainly people like to rant about the scene in Canto Bight with Finn and Rose, maybe,
But yeah,
like the music used for that scene is actually pretty good. Now the second part of the Canto Bight theme sounds a little too much like royalty-free Mos Eisley music, but the first bit, like the instrumentals, is pretty good. And I would like to use that sort of music in a video of my own. Stay tuned for Red Rangers versus Psycho Red in a stop motion. But yeah,
wink, wink.
Canto Bight music, not so bad. I like the first part better
Well,
than
but
the second part,
yeah.
though.
It's pretty not like jazz like theme, but it's very like
kinda like-
positive beat that's played throughout the scene of it from the very first shot. That was the one take panning through like every round containing the table that was going in, stopping
Yeah.
up in, and just that moment that we got and seeing the environment, feeling how well and how anticipating how nice the casino was, and seeing that moment come through for Finn was basically his idea of it from his experience. That was pretty much shown just from the theme, and it just really brings you into that very calm and very exciting feeling just from listening to it.
Yeah, and that's pretty much all the pros we have to say about The Last Jedi. Now, all the cons we've got, aside from aside from the fact that we already mentioned Luke Skywalker, there's plenty of other cons that are worth mentioning. Well, we already also brought up Rey being and Mary Sue, but how about the inclusion of other characters?
Porg.
Yeah. The next toy industry sellout in Star Wars history. Now, okay, people are going to say stuff like, oh, what about the Ewoks? Or what about Jar Jar? Or the pod racer stuff? Like, like I said, like,
how about a delicious porg?
Yeah.
Oh man.
BBQ pork sandwich, anybody?
I like mine cooked medium.
Yeah. And if you do it just right, we'll have to tell people firmly and politely to leave. Like Hank Hill would have once said to everybody. But yeah, the porgs themselves are pretty much the typical, we gotta sell money off of dolls sort of stuff. I mean, it's nothing new in Star Wars, like I said. Ewoks, Gungans.
Exactly.
But like, it's kind of like, we get it. Like, you want to sell your toys, but how many times we're gonna get stuff like this? And the fact that we got early in the year Baby Groot is just, yeah, we know Disney wants to get all that moolah from the plush collectors and all the other sorts of fans that we pretty much think anything's cute.
Yeah.
If I was forced to take either a Porg or Baby Groot, anyone would say Baby Groot. Like even if you don't want to be like magically like taken from Disney's enchantment of merchandise overtaking that they are so kingly of doing. Like if you were to say, I would just choose Baby Groot then, because it's just so annoying looking at Porgs again though.
Well, for me personally, I choose Buzz Lightyear.
Buzz Lightyear, the world.
Yeah, Disney might be like, what? That's not a choice. And it'd pretty much be like that one scene from Toy Story 2 before Andy left, except for the scene where Andy rips off Woody's arm, because we don't want that to happen again.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, Porgs. Star Wars marketing tactic number 3, because we've already got stuff like the Gungans and Jar Jar and Ewoks and
Ewoks.
And of course we got Dio, which we'll talk about in a bit. And
it's Dio.
and that child. But yeah, back to the cons of The Last Jedi. The way some of the characters were written is just, yeah, I get you want to separate everybody. I mean, we've done that with Empire and Clones, but if you're going to separate the characters, at least make the stuff interesting. Like, it kind of sucked that Finn wasn't with Rey, but at least his stuff was a lot more enjoyable in a way, whereas Rey, her interactions with Luke are just, really? That's the best you can do?
Apparently.
Yeah.
Yeah, sadly. Like, the thing I like most when it comes to character interactions in Star Wars is just, like, the way they contrast one another. And unfortunately, we got to deal with people that are saying stuff like, oh, like, how can you say this, but, like, be okay with Luke meeting Yoda? And I guess you could say, okay, yeah, like, Luke Skywalker in a way was trying to be like Yoda, which they run home by the fact that they included Yoda as a puppet, because, of course, which, not a bad thing, but it just seems kind of alienating to see Luke Skywalker be like this beacon of hope, and then he's turned into yet another Obi-Wan and another Yoda, all because he couldn't kill his nephew, or at least try and convince him to stay away.
It's like, and of course, the thing that, the pro Last Jedi crowd can never answer. How come he's like, no, I can't kill my father. There's still good in him, but that nephew of mine, he's gotta fucking die. There's evil.
Yeah.
None of them can answer that. Not a single one. And if they do, it sounds like bullshit.
That's good.
And maybe that's sort of the expectation subversion that Ryan Johnson was talking about. I don't know at this point.
Because, Ryan Johnson didn't like Empire, so it's like, oh, this is my own version, and this is him making his own version.
Yeah. And I understand why he
some
wouldn't like...
40-something-year-old man was disappointed in a movie that came out 40 years ago.
Yeah, I understand. It's okay to not like Empire.
I know, but it's like, for that to be the basis behind this, it's like an episode of Bar Rescue where John Taffer walks in and there's a horse taking a shit on the floor. It's like, how do you go from there?
Exactly.
It's like, the rest can't be good.
Right. And it's just a shame for a fact that this being his version of Empire just seems more like that one algebra meme. That one algebra gif. What's supposed to make this better than Empire? Is it supposed to have tighter storytelling?
That's a good question.
Is Luke Skywalker was Yoda supposed to have sucked the milk out of a space cow? Was there supposed to be...
which, by the way, God, that is still so gnarly.
Was Luke...
That's just one of the most overgrowing cons that anyone will try to get their mind out of, but no, they can't, because it's just the PTSD of this film. Just that milk scene. Oh my god!
Yeah, honestly,
and the fact that the special effects team put so much effort, even because in the time of production, I was watching behind the scenes of it, and how they were saying they had a little bit of time, even though, because I know each film for the sequel trilogy was 2 years after, and they had to put a lot of time even right after the film beforehand. But they put so much effort just on one alien that was overly hated. Just imagine realizing that for the team in their case. That's just bad on their
they something more hateable than Jar Jar Binks.
Which at this point, the hate towards him is just
In fact, this whole trilogy made stuff that was more hateable than Jar Jar. At least you can look back on that and laugh.
Plus, Jar Jar isn't a terrible person.
Cringe.
Jar Jar at least was funny in some ways. I mean, he's not the best thing ever,
it's
but
also title to trilogy.
Honestly, at this point, the hate towards Jar Jar is just something I would expect from
the most A-loved character of all time in any media.
At this point, the hate towards him is just mostly from Facebook people that can't go past 1999.
Yeah.
Yeah, if that makes sense. Which it might do, but yeah. All that sort of stuff regarding The Last Jedi is just Christ almighty.
I mean, besides just those cases, there is some of the cons that pros that I just started thinking about. In cases of action, there wasn't much, right, compared to if you compare Force Awakens to Last Jedi. For sure, there's less action with The Last Jedi, but even with what it had some pretty good sequences, like the Admiral. Wait, who was Laura Dern's character? Holo, right?
Yeah, I think it was.
Holo, yeah,
Holo. So Holo's brave sacrifice from the Lightspeed crash, that sequence, we can all agree that was pretty good, right?
It wasn't too bad. I kind of liked it.
Visually, like I said, when it comes to cinematography, that scene adds to it.
Yeah,
the
it's
visuals
great.
Just from that, the sound design, just of the pure silence from the wreck of each Star Destroyer, including the main one from Snow, until you hear that last bang out of space. That was where you think, okay, I'll give you that, Ryan.
Yeah.
And that was pretty good.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think that's probably the best scene out of
And then
out of all of them.
And then there's also stuff like Princess Leia flying away in space, which
Oh
yeah.
yeah, that one.
Look,
Position and
I understand
you say,
for a fact
okay,
that
yeah.
it
Nothing
sucks.
changed.
It is sad that unfortunately Carrie Fisher passed away back in 2016. But
Yeah.
was this the best way to write off her character?
Yeah.
Apparently.
Just thinking about that, how that was that I think Last Jedi was pretty much her last real appearance of it too. How
Yeah,
that
it
film
was.
that's just tough to think about even now.
I think
Honestly, considering how Carrie passed away, that was probably the best way to have Leia go out, because it's like, how the fuck are you gonna do it in the next one outside of computers? Because
Yeah.
obviously they were able to mimic how a person actually looks with computers by actually making Peter Cushing for Rogue One, but at the same time, then you're crossing some ethics lines, because it's
Yeah.
like, you bring back. Actually, this is a good one. Am I really going to defile this grave for money?
of course I
Of course
am.
I am.
And that's pretty much something I also brought up with Leia back regarding her
Because,
younger self in
man,
Rogue One.
They did that with Rogue One. Peter Cushing had already been dead for 22 years, whereas Carrie was just very recent. So,
Yeah.
Still
I
though,
don't know.
even if they died in different times, I still didn't like the return of either character. With Cushing, it just felt like was his family happy about it? Then it's also the fact that they really try
I
to
don't
win us
know.
over.
I mean, no, I think I heard they say they did agree with like kind of bringing his presence forward for one, but like I don't know if it was like really that overly just appreciated. But like they had to agree, I guess, in the case of how important.
Let's be honest. If it was played by a different guy, it would look weird.
Yeah.
It would look weird, but it would be a more, I guess, how do you call it? It would just be a more appropriate choice
Yeah,
instead of having
it would
to
be the more
completely
traditional
rechange.
route.
Yeah, or
Yeah,
honestly,
more
just
traditional.
just don't include the character. I'd be fine with that.
Yeah, that too.
And with Leia, well, it was already kind of unsettling to see her younger self in Rogue One, but it was also unsettling to see her fly away.
Yeah.
But hey, shooting stars meme, that's something, right? Exactly. Oh man. And
Okay. See that now. Think about what I said about just the pro of how well the Last Jedi was shot. Like, I'd say it's kind of a hard balance between Last Jedi and Rogue One, because Rogue One cinematography, I forgot to mention about that. That is just one of the best aspects of the film too. I think that I say that over top for the sequel trilogy, best one, it's the Last Jedi. But as a whole of every Disney Star Wars installment, it's Rogue One.
Yeah.
yeah,
Just saying that there. I don't want to add too much more, but just some moments compared to The Last Jedi, Rogue One had a lot more like emotional like impact just brought in some shots that were going in from moments of characters or just moments of sequences, especially with the Death Star compared to what Last Jedi did.
yeah.
Yeah,
And
I agree with that.
well, I guess there's not much to talk about the Last Jedi. I mean, at this point, it's all going to be just the female characters pretty much rubbing their faces.
Anyone even listening to this can know how flawed the Last Jedi is and how badly it's just going to be remembered from this time to how many years in the future.
Yeah. And the worst part is the fact that if you happen to dislike The Last Jedi, even if you go into too much detail, you're going to be considered a hater or sexist and all that sort of garbage, as mentioned earlier.
Or just unintelligent bigot, apparently.
Yeah. And I hate that sort of mindset. Like, there are certain people that can be stubborn as fuck with hating something, but it's very amusing when people act like, oh, like you hate this movie and you hate Star Wars in general, even though there's people that like the other films. And I used to know somebody who pretty much would defend the sequel trilogy and got all whiny when people hated it. Yet it's okay to continue bashing the prequels and anyone that probably liked them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whew. I think I might as well just retitle this video as grown men complaining about a franchise that verified Twitter claims is for children. I'm going to put that in the video description. Mark my words. All right.
At this point, that's just a lot of hard cases now thinking about it. Oh, gosh.
Now let's talk about Galaxy of Adventures, which is kind of a series of sorts that retells the events of the Star Wars series, but in an animated twist that looks more like that kind of stuff you'd expect from Flash animation, albeit in a blobby sort of way.
You speedrun this and just say it's a piece of crap.
Yeah. Okay. They really try to make everybody look so blobby. Like, it's like way too blobby. It's like far too stubborn, and like this, the moment I saw like Princess Leia like kicking everyone into the trash compactor, it's just kind of sad if you ask me. It's like they really want us to like that sort of stuff. Like I guess for kids and all, but yeah, kind of cringy.
Mm-hmm.
But
Completely.
like one of the positive, at least they contributed towards adding in other stuff beyond the original trilogy, because you know Disney would like to cling around the original trilogy dick. Now, would they?
They did.
All right, moving on to another movie. Let's talk Solo.
Well,
Solo.
what?
Solo.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, did
a movie?
the someone leave?
Yeah,
Is
like
it a movie?
let's just talk about Solo for a bit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, start.
Well, I think it's okay. The movie.
I just want to
was
say
okay.
that I fell asleep at the middle of the movie.
You
Yeah,
left?
I don't really know what the fuck happened. Until now, I don't know what is the movie.
I'm happy to not have watched Solo in theaters. I just waited until it came digital. But yeah, I pretty much watched every other one, but that one, I just knew I didn't have any interest. But the fact that we can all agree too that this was completely like purposeless. Like no one asked for Solo's origin story. No one asked for a Han story to be told. We all have an idea, at least, of who the character is. He's already set from the original films. Why do we need to go more?
Yeah,
Yeah, completely necessary.
like
Just played so
yeah, it's
okay-ish, so fine. Everything is just there. Underwhelming.
just you guys summed it up
All
perfectly,
along.
because I couldn't really stand like the idea of the Solo movie. I mean, it's like sure it's not gonna like make me lose sleep overall, but at the same time, did we really need it?
We did not,
And like
and nor did anyone even ask. But yeah, Kathleen Kennedy was so prominent and so positive of how well this could be a good box office hit coming in 2018. But yet she didn't realize that it was going to be the biggest box office bomb of any Disney Star Wars film that's come from recent beforehand.
I
And
actually celebrated that.
yeah,
Like-
she even still like even from interviews, she like at least I give her props to still keeping it positive in her case from being seen, just seeing how good it comes out. But yeah, it's just the reality is often disappointing, which is another kind of nod I'm giving, since we knew another film had already topped off beyond what they could have imagined in Disney's case.
yeah,
With the side of Marvel, right? With
Yeah.
Infinity War. That
Like-
film already overtook everything for 2018.
yeah,
So
like,
why would the focus be well enough for Solo?
yeah, like why even bother at this point? Like you're putting up a Star Wars movie after a Marvel movie. Like sure, like do whatever you want. Like I know it's Disney, pretty much like being like obsessed with money because that's the fucking dickheads that they are, stupid fucks. But
Yeah.
like greedy bastards. But like at the same time, like you've already done a lot of money with Infinity War. And as much as I hate Infinity War, like, I know for a fact that that movie was quite popular, although I kind of prefer more than Endgame. But that being said, why bother releasing Solo, a Star Wars story about a character you already know about, when you've already got Infinity War, which is the 10th biggest Marvel movie. It's part one
Oh
of
yeah.
the Infinity Saga. Like, who cares about Solo at this
Yeah.
point? Even other films like
Yeah.
Deadpool 2 were much more interesting than Solo.
Gosh. I mean, like, is there even? Do you guys have like good positives or ideas of positives of the film?
I don't know at this point. Like, all I can say is for a fact that it made me appreciate not even giving a shit about it. And it also made me realize that, you know what? Like, I
Oh
don't
oh.
want, I don't want like too many Star Wars movies at this point. You know, the fact that they released it even close, like not even in December, is just pathetic.
Yeah.
I mean, like the Disney. It just shows how what we can also do in the case of everything from for the Disney Star Wars idea, but just like how unplanned they were doing this. But the fact that every single year they put out a Star Wars movie with Solo included. 2015, 2016, 2017. Now we're at 2018 with Solo, and yet it's just nothing good has been going except for just the first film they've already put out for Force Awakens. That's the only good start. Everything else just slowly crashes down to where we are talking about now with Solo, and then of course after we're going to talk about later.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
like the fact that they try
Mhm.
to make Star Wars another MCU is just like, first of all, it's kind of offensive because at this point, you know, I guess someone that grew up with Star Wars and appreciative for its own thing before this garbage Disney monopoly shit. Like, I liked Star Wars for what it was, and at the time I liked Marvel Cinematic Universe for what it was. Now they want to make everything so damn similar. It's like, why bother?
Yeah.
On top of that,
I mean,
like, they want to make stuff like an Obi-Wan series and a Darth Vader movie. Like, you know, it's fine. You know, you want to try and milk the fuck out of your nostalgic, populated fan base, fine. But do we really need that shit?
yeah, just we can just. I mean, like I don't know, but like I can just say just one word to describe Solo: unnecessary.
Yeah,
Yeah.
You know, I mean, we already said that, but that's just the only word, one word. If you had to choose one word of the movie, that's what it is, because it's just so unnecessary of the film. It's just thinking
Yeah.
about, like, I even rewatched it again just because I was rewatching the Star Wars franchise, because I rewatch film franchises quite often. Like, I have a habit of that. And even when I do it for Star Wars, I just always go in the yes or no mix. For if should I watch Solo to keep further on, or should I just not? Should I just let that slide if I watch everything else?
Yeah.
yeah.
And also, it was necessary to add Darth Maul at the end of credits. You know.
Oh my gosh, Darth
Why?
Maul.
Like, yeah, I like Darth
There.
Maul, but
Fred,
what
you
purpose
know
would he
this.
had in
You
the
know this.
movie? Oh yeah, for like a Han Solo trilogy that's never even gonna come out because the movie did poorly.
But of course, let's get a twist ending where we can get one appreciated Sith member that can be possibly bringing a sequel out Solo. Let's just bring Maul. Hopefully, that will get a lot of fans riling up and ready to join in for the sequel. And no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank God we are not getting a Solo sequel because, like, what are they going to talk about? Are they going to talk about, like, Han Solo looking for spare parts to make the Millennium Falcon his way? Are they going to talk about, like, him and Chewie looking for other characters? Or are they going to do, like, a rematch of the Kessel Run? Fuck that, I'm done. I'm done.
I mean, okay, that I would say just that's only a kind of a positive, only kind of a positive for Solo, for Disney being actually like the ones to be. I guess they should have some appreciation for what they've done in the case for actually telling of how the Kessel Run was like, right? The story that Han brags about so often from A New Hope was I got the ship to make the Kessel Run in 14 parsecs. I mean, anyone can imagine how that would be like, but we actually do see it, which is nice. So that's just one thing I have to say that is kind of a positive for it.
Yeah, it's kind of cool, but at the same time, considering that it popped up in a movie like this, I'd rather not learn more about it.
Yeah, but so just besides the necessariness of the story and just with knowing Han, I mean, like I guess it's cool seeing Han and Chewie meet first time, but just having it as Chewbacca becoming a slave beast for the Empire, that just makes it it's a lot of iffiness in my mind just thinking about Chewie having to stop his first interactions with Han for them becoming the ultimate duo, just by them becoming first off being enemies like that. Just I didn't like it like that. No.
Plus, there's plenty of other issues that honestly made me remember Solo, not for the movie itself, but just for the stupid shit that happened. Like when Denny's made this promotion and they try to like solve all these stuff about the cubes, like the dice that were on the Millennium Falcon, how that relates to the Last Jedi. It's like, why bother?
Oh yeah, the dice, yeah.
Yeah, like what purpose would it
Because
serve?
I was wondering about that too, like watching Last Jedi the first time. Just like I never seen that. Wait, why is that dice so important? Because I remember Luke getting it from his time going into Falcon and then giving it back to Leia, and then okay, I guess that's something that's going to be told later, and then we get it.
But in a movie that doesn't even like matter.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. It was just a thing that used to belong to Han's other admirer way beforehand before he met Leia even. But that dice is apparently just a good luck charm that has a significance for his character. When yet it was just another thing that really connects to nothing.
Yeah. Didn't think that through, did you, Ryan? And whoever directed Solo. Oh, by the way, did you know
I think it was Ron Howard.
Yeah, did you know that he wasn't the original director for the movie? Two other guys that were involved.
Yeah, wasn't the original the directors from Game of Thrones?
I don't know. Maybe they were that, or the directors of Spider-Verse. I think they were the directors of Spider-Verse.
Oh yeah, you're right. No, I remember now. Yeah. Phil Lord and Christopher Miller. Yeah, they were supposed to be part of a project for Star Wars, and then they canceled them. And then and then a year later, because that was the deals. I remember like watching a bunch of news. There were deals from that in 2017, and hearing about how they got canceled. And then what happens in 2018 from the same year when Solo comes out? They come with their own film called Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, which did not only beat one, but two Disney films in the Academy Award for Best Animated Feature. Boom and boom.
Exactly.
I know it's out topic Star Wars, but I just want to say I'm just happy in their case because they deserve justice after getting completely snubbed from the Lego Movie and Hollywood's Chance to Meatball. I'm just saying, I love Phil and Christopher. I'm one of the best fans. I just love so much of what they've done for all the past work they've done.
And you're reminding me that I kind of want to see Into the Spider-Verse again, even though I just saw it for the podcast episode in episode 8. But yeah, Spider-Verse is better than Solo, no question. And
no question, hands down.
So yeah, fucking piece of shit Solo movie is a reminder of why we don't need all these spin-off movies of characters we already know about. Like, sure, I was excited when I heard that Hayden Christensen and Ewan McGregor are going to return in the Disney Plus series, but at the same time, it's just something I'd cherry pick rather than be super excited about because I just want to see the actors again.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's going to be kind of funny to see people say stuff like, "Oh, how can you say that but hate Solo?" Like, difference is that, like, if Obi-Wan Kenobi turns out to be good, I probably like that and hate Solo because Solo didn't need Harrison Ford, obviously, but at the same time, it didn't need to exist either. Same could be said about Kenobi, but maybe we're wrong if Kenobi turns out to be good. We'll see. We'll be cautiously optimistic.
We'll see how that likely turns out. I mean, like, could we even trust that it will be like promising? It's promising for the fact that Ewan McGregor is actually coming back, like that's cool. That's cool to see him again gone as the great Obi-Wan Kenobi, and that we'll likely see Hayden when we see Hayden and him first time, like in him as Vader and then him as Kenobi. That's gonna be the most anticipated duel ever again in recent time for sure.
Yeah. Of course.
Okay, and now let's talk about another cartoon, that being Star Wars Resistance, or as I like to call it, the Hot Wheels TV show. Yeah, like, no joke. Has anyone ever seen the first, teasers for Resistance and thought, wait, is this some sort of Hot Wheels tie-in?
I remember how it was like I saw a teaser I remember long ago, and it was like doesn't it start off with Poe Dameron just like leading a bunch of little little kids that were about to become pilots, right?
Yeah.
Like they were about to become X-wing pilots. That's all I remember out of the teaser, but just everything else from the show itself, I really don't have much history of watching it at all. Like I haven't watched it even recently. The only thing I've seen recently was like something with the characters, like how they were like in an Imperial location, or not Imperial, sorry, First Order location, and then they were hiding behind like a bunch of boxes when they were seeing a lost stormtroopers. They were watching a hologram like message that was General Hux when he was having his great speech from the Force Awakens. That was him about to lead from the first blast of killing the Republic from the Dark Lord. That was the only thing I've actually seen of the show. I mean, it was only cool because like this YouTuber, like he compared the both scenes with like the real General Hux from Stone Gleason, from him giving his speech, and then to the same audio and same scene from how the animation was. That's the only thing I remember, but rest of the show I don't really know.
Yeah. But like it kind of reminds me of going from Clone Wars and Rebels to this show. It's kind of reminiscent of going from Transformers Prime to the 2015 Robots in Disguise series.
Mm-hmm.
Like Clone Wars and Rebels are both great. Transformers Prime is great. Star Wars Resistance is mediocre. And Transformers Robots in Disguise 2015 is underwhelming.
It's just a word I pretty much give it even for this case of Resistance.
Admittedly, it's for different points, like different reasons. Like Robots in Disguise upset me more than Resistance did because Robots in Disguise was meant to be a sequel to Prime, and it felt like sure it was a sequel, but it felt more like a forgettable, tie-in in some ways. The animation didn't even help stuff out because despite the fact that it's like nicely done, cel shaded, it kind of felt far too like struggleish with the frame rate. Plus, this TV show definitely gives off the Hot Wheels vibes, and I'll never forget when some guy got upset just because someone made a comment like that. Which, yeah, the fact that you're getting comparisons like that is kind of sad, and I know people are going to say stuff like, "Oh, what about this thing you like?" But hey, like, nothing's going to be immune to criticism. So if you're going to complain about something that we like, let us complain about something like this. Fun.
Yeah.
Well, fun as in like the fun and criticism and stuff like this. Not calling Resistance fun, but yeah, there's a lot that we've already quite talked about with something like that, and that pretty much covers Resistance, a forgettable series that feels more like a full-on minimum effort tie-in to a big movie, which weirdly didn't even come out when The Force Awakens was released. Feels like it should have done something like that. I almost expect this to have replaced Rebels the moment it started to get good, if you ask me.
Yeah.
Yeah, if only it was. If there's an alternate world where the show was much more higher than Rebels, then that'd be interesting to live in that world, see how that goes. But we're not in that world, and we just kind of have to know that fact.
Yeah. But remaining in this world, but switching to a different sort of entertainment platform, we're going back to video games and talking about Jedi Fallen Order. Now, compared to the two Battlefront games we've gotten, those were pretty much mixed bags, with one being so reliant on DLC and the other one being so reliant on fan service. But what about Jedi Fallen Order?
Well, I didn't see something about it. But I know this is for another section, but what I forgot to say about Battlefront 2, there was Operation Sinner that if you saw Mandalorian, you will understand.
Oh yeah. No, I caught it watching it with my brother.
But we're gonna take that in that section.
Yeah.
Well,
Stay
continue.
tuned,
But
everybody.
I don't say anything about Fallen Order. Yeah, no, I don't.
Yes, we're
Just
talking
saw
about
something
Fallen
about it,
Order
to be
right now.
honest.
Yeah, it's the same thoughts to it too. I mean, because I like how there was tie-ins from Battlefront 2 to like Battlefront 2 to Mandalorian operations. That was pretty cool. But like if that idea, like with that idea existing, with how they did that from Mandalorian, I wonder how that could follow in with if they could make a tie-in from Fallen Order to whatever the future projects will fall in for Disney, maybe in the Disney Plus series, like the different series, like maybe for Kenobi or for Andor or Star Wars Legends. Like, if they do something from that would be pretty cool to see how Fallen Order comes. But
Yes.
I mean, for the case of the game, like I did play it only a little bit, but that was recently because I have an Xbox and I got it from Game Pass, which is for free in EA Play.
Okay.
And I played a little bit of it, but like really, like I just stopped because I already saw the whole story. Because like if there's games that I don't get, I watch the cutscenes. Like, do you guys watch cutscenes of games? Like mostly?
Sometimes I do, but usually I just prefer to see the gameplay itself instead of just, or at least be in the gameplay by playing the game instead of just being a cheater.
Yeah, exactly. So I just basically do it all the time in the case of games that I don't get. And watching for Fallen Order, I always take cutscenes into the idea of movie because basically I just watch the Fallen Order as a movie from what was shown in the story. And like as a story from itself, it's probably one of the best original stories that was made within the recent time of video games or of the Star Wars video games. I say it overtops Battlefront 2's story like beyond the margin.
Well, sorry to interrupt that. I hear there's a connection, I guess, with the prequel game, with the prequel movies, right? I guess.
Yeah.
Because of how Cal, like the main character, Cal Kestis, because of how he works as a he's not an engineer, but like he's a part collector, right? Since like it's kind of like a scavenger, kind of like how Ray was, but just like they actually had an expanded business with Cal and his friend. I think he was called Prof, and like how they were both getting like old scavenge parts of the classic A1 destroyers that was from the prequels. So that was part of the already like alliance, right? So they got parts from there, and then they even saw all those ships of like the Jedi Star class fighter, and so like they really brought a lot of good connections with the prequels while it's within the time of the Empire. So it's a good touch they did from the game in that case, setting up the world that we were getting into.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But how about the actual gameplay itself for those that tried it out?
Trying it out, I only did like just from the first mission, but like playing it as itself, the lightsaber mechanics, amazing.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Like, sure, like back then, nothing you can really add on. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Exactly. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And like there wasn't much for them to have to like fix on or even try to add up for whatever they could in their own style with EA. But like they at least made sure that it felt a lot more like kind of like connected with you being a Jedi with the lightsaber, because we've already seen that with Knights of the Old Republic or like the Old Republic games in general, or Jedi Knight, or Star Wars Jedi Knight, like from those old games.
Whoa.
Oh. It's gone?
Yeah, he just had a bit of a technical problem. He just like,
Oh, damn.
yeah.
Yeah, he's gone.
Well, pretty sure he's not gone just yet. But I'll address that in what he's saying.
What
Yeah.
about this?
Yeah. Like, I definitely do agree with the fact that the gameplay works. Like, the gameplay itself is pretty nice. Like, they didn't try to overcomplicate it too much or try to make it seem far too gimmicky. Like, they just enhanced the gameplay. They made it seem a lot more like what they do with these new controllers, and they overall made it seem very smooth, which is something I greatly appreciate because a lot of video games nowadays try to overcomplicate controls, and it's kind of something that
Yeah.
requires me to get used to it, especially someone that doesn't or that wants to go past the typical stuff like Mario or Midnight Club and all that sort of jazz.
Yeah.
And yeah, Jedi Fallen Order is probably the best Star Wars game released in this time period, but it's not saying much because there's very little competition. Now, before we go into these last subject matters, and I know this came out later than what we're about to delve into after this, but I want to talk about the Clone Wars final season, which
I did not get into season 7. I'm still like I haven't watched the Clone Wars recently in a while, so I started rewatching everything again, like first online, and then I had to get Disney Plus for it. So
Yeah.
season 7, I'm at season 5, so like I'm very in the short time away. But the thing is, my subscription is monthly for it, so I'm gonna have to really watch as fast as I can throughout the later days before my thing is done, so I can finally get season 7. Because everyone already knows that like season 7 is just one of the best seasons to have ever come. Like that's what anyone can hear from reviews of anything of what was Disney had done.
yeah,
So
like,
that's all I know, and I don't want to see any spoilers or any scenes out of it.
let's just put it this way, that this season just definitely knows how to keep people happy, not with the fan service, but just with the quality itself. You know,
Okay.
it doesn't
Oh,
feel like
nice.
it compromised anything. You know, the writers didn't try to simplify stuff. It feels like how I'd expect the series to have continued had it not struggled with stuff like the buyout that resulted in Cartoon Network giving up on the Clone Wars and us getting Rebels.
That's good to know. Then.
And
Yeah, definitely.
like the stuff that we got was honestly quite done well. You know, nothing felt rushed. Everything felt quite consistent. Admittedly, there was one character that kind of got controversy because they looked sort of quote unquote SJW-ish, but honestly, that's the least of the problems that we got. Maybe some people might actually complain that it's a little too short for what we got, but it's fine. And some might call this hypocritical, but I do appreciate it trying to connect itself to Revenge of the Sith, which, like, you know,
Of course, because like for sure with
Yeah.
it being the last season, it's the one that helps finally, like I said, brings us into Revenge of the Sith, and now really has everything interconnected from the whole saga, which is of course the best part of the Clone Wars for everything that's done for helping retell or not retell or just tell what went on for Anakin and Obi-Wan and how their part through the story from after Attack of the Clones has been on with the new Clone Wars emerging and how Palpatine's power started rising for him to become Emperor Palpatine. So that's of course what I'm excited to see for the final product. So I'm still really hyped about it. It's just we really have to get into watching it.
Yeah, but like the point is that like even if they added in all this fan service, it wasn't the only thing that made this final season worthwhile. Like you've still got the same sort of consistent writing as mentioned earlier. New characters like the Bad Batch were instantly beloved because like they're these like clone rejects that are still cool. They think differently from the other clones, and I just always had like big smile on my face when I ever saw them on the screen. And it's just great stuff. You know, it's like I said, consistent with what we got before. Nothing feels like it's been compromised or dumbed down. An example being like how the writers of Beast Morpher sort of compromised the Dino Thunder team by making them seem a little more simple in character. And of course, Connor sounding nothing like Connor. But in this case, with the writers of the Clone Wars being obviously like similar staff, I mean, we got ourselves the main legend himself that wrote the series, which not a bad thing, if you ask me. Always great to have him around. Kind of like how we got
Yeah.
ourselves Favreau in the next subject matter we'll be talking about. It's always great that Dave Filoni's around, and at this point, I got to give him nothing but praise for at least just making us happy again. More than just the nostalgia, but just for the fact that we're getting a complete story. And yeah, I'm just very, very content with how the Clone Wars season finale turned out. And as hypocritical as this is going to be, as I mentioned again, this is how you do like a fan service-esque ending that involves a final chapter to a story while also including fan service. Unlike Rogue One, like obviously this is not like 100% seamless. Like it's obviously just them tying themselves into Revenge of the Sith, but like, it's not even forcing you to like accept that. Like they're at least giving you stuff that would still feel written, even if this wasn't meant to tie in with Revenge of the Sith, such as Captain Rex pretty much refusing to kill Ahsoka. Like that was kind of heart wrenching because like obviously we know Captain Rex shows up again in Rebels, but the fact that he dropped his helmet and is just hesitant to kill his friend is
Hey, I'm gonna take my earbuds off real quick.
like that's still the same sort of writing quality, and it hammers in the mindset that people that complain about Clone Wars being a kids show are definitely watching the wrong stuff because this is the least kid show that I've ever seen amongst kids shows, especially when you consider just how like expansive the writing was. I mean, it was a series that grew up with the audience, and that's something I miss in a lot of stuff nowadays.
Yeah, same feeling.
Yeah, and wish I can honestly end off on the episode with the discussion of Clone Wars, but well, I can say that we're at least getting a series
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
Bad
it would
Batch.
have been a great positive, but
We got more
everyone
to talk
can
about.
predict that now there's a disturbance in the force.
Which, before we get into it, I just want to say that the Bad Batch, along with our Obi-Wan series, is something I wouldn't mind cherry picking if I was given a chance to see it, because compared to all the stuff we got upcoming from the Investor Day, I'll probably just stick with those two. But next up will be The Mandalorian. Now,
Ooh.
you guys are going to think that we're going to praise The Mandalorian 24/7, right? Well,
It's a 24/7 appreciation host time now that we're going to get into. A lot to talk about. I can say, even though I already said that enough with a lot of people, like especially with who I was watching it with since season 1, and then even season 2. There's a lot that anyone can say about season 2.
yeah.
But as much as we love the Mandalorian season 2, I guess it was too short for me. There's some episodes
Yeah.
where we're kind of okay. I want more. It's like it's too short. It's like I want to enjoy more the development of the story, but so many things, happen so fast. But it was good anyway. By my
Yeah.
opinion, it needs more time to develop some things.
Like, personally
Well, just to start
speaking,
with it.
like, I'll admit, yeah, it was kind of surprising that it was a bit shorter than I expected. Maybe it might have to do with like the
Yeah.
fact that COVID sort of interrupted the filming, but beyond that,
Yeah.
Yeah.
like let's start
Yeah, I
off with
agree for that.
with season 1. Go back to season 1.
Okay.
Like
Okay, season 1.
I kind of prefer season 1 because it was mainly just us in this new setting. Like sure we had some references to the past, but all we mainly focused on was just the new characters. We got the Mandalorian himself. He's our main character. He's got an assassin droid in the form of an IG-86 model, as well as the mission to protect a child, which many call Baby Yoda because, of course, they would. Now,
Mhm.
if you think we're going to be saying, "Oh my God, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda, Baby Yoda," well, guess what? You're wrong.
Yeah.
That's not the reason why I actually have some sort of appreciation for the Mandalorian.
Oh, man, I guess we can hear you very clear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So I was covering. I was just saying that like how just because that one ending with how it led from Mandalorian and the IG droid to finally made to the mission to find what their prize was in the case of the bounty. Finding that it was a little cute the baby version of Yoda just turned everything into the Baby Yoda show.
Yeah.
True.
Yeah.
Like, admittedly, if you're someone that actually gives a shit about Baby Yoda only and you want it to be all about him, if you see the actual show and, like, aside from just watching the YouTube compilation clips that are somehow avoiding copyright strikes from Disney, you might be disappointed because there's other stuff to focus on. But I can at least say that the episodes on their own don't just make Baby Yoda the only thing that fucking matters.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Because I can at least appreciate the fact that everything else in the series has some focus. Like the stories themselves are pretty good. Mandalorian is still in character, even if he has to deal with this sort of prize that he found. And
Yeah, but it was well that told, at least in the case of how his journey would have to become so complicated more just because of the one bounty that he didn't expect and that he couldn't be told about. It was just find it, get it, bring it, you'll be receiving your prize. And of course, like we've seen that for the majority of like 3 episodes, right? Him until it went on with Mando having to take Baby Yoda into his own care, knowing through his moral self that he had to like actually give this creature that he couldn't have any knowledge of. He had to give him the care that it deserved instead of just being brought and sold like a product.
yeah, like he couldn't be like much of a cold list bounty hunter at that point. Like thankfully it didn't dump down into like typical humor that you'd expect from a series like that.
Mm-hmm.
Like he was still in character as mentioned, and everyone else was also in character or in the specific tone of the series. Which, by the way, I kind of appreciate the Wild West vibe of it.
Yeah. I was about to say because they made sure that the whole show was really a great. Just as Star Wars is a great space soap opera of a whole galactic adventure we got to see from the original trilogy and prequels and so on. They made sure that The Mandalorian was the closest to a great space western of the show that we've gotten in the perspective of this bounty hunter that's just verging through the sun and villainy of the galaxy. And
pretty much trying to get himself into like pretty much encountering all these crazy things that happen.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yep.
Yeah, and to be honest, well, in my case, I don't know you guys, but I don't want to hate me saying this, but I really need this product because I am really tired about the Skywalker stuff. I need to take a rest about all this stuff that were in 3 trilogies, yes. But I really need that rest of this and bring me something new with a new character, which is kind of related to that
Past
story in a
character,
way,
but
not directly. But it's great to see new characters with this on people who can love these characters and make it iconic because Disney trilogy has great characters, but they're not well. I don't feel them to pass as iconic characters as Mandalorian, as Mando and Baby Grogu. In that case, or Baby Yoda.
yeah.
Yeah, now they are iconic, but people aren't talking about Poe Dameron or Finn. Well,
Well,
maybe
aside
Ray.
from when they're talking
I don't
about
know.
like unless they're like criticizing the way they were handled by Disney in terms of the waste of potential.
Yeah.
It just shows what it's like when it comes to the right people to take like their care in the sense of what's the most appreciated. So in the case of Star Wars, we know behind Disney and what they've done, getting Kathleen, getting JJ, getting Ryan to put their take in furthering the story. We just know how dumbed down that was, and we already talked about that. But seeing how to those that actually has appreciation, compassion, experience, and the love of Star Wars, like Dave Filoni, like Jon Favreau, like Bryce Dallas Howard, like how with what even some of the other directors like Peyton Reed, and with what they brought in from each episode, making sure that everything was well told, that the writing didn't fall off out of the timeline, that everything was kept in. There was no funny one-liners. There wasn't any kind of like added in conspiracies to later then just become washed away. They just made sure that it was a story that kept true to the heart of Star Wars, and that the idea and concept of life of Star Wars was honored, because that's what George Lucas had intended to do, right? Make this entirety of the franchise about a story of life, about conflict, about love, about hope, about danger, about everything that is the best and worst, that is the balance towards everything that we experience in our likely time of society of everything. It's made sure to be brought from each film that George had done. And he honored that same thing with the Clone Wars continuing on. He made sure that the prequels follow on that. Even no matter how negative they were on him, he made sure that he done his story, bringing his own story that he created into the further extent of making as prominent and as appropriate as possible. And that's just like the thought that not many fans could even give. Like, at least for the amateur Star Wars fans, like they don't appreciate that enough. But The Mandalorian is the first and only real thing that these new Star Wars fans are going to actually have an idea of what it's like to be a Star Wars fan from the time of when George Lucas was making the great concepts being brought in from characters that you can grow to love.
Exactly.
Totally agree, man. Totally agree.
Yeah,
I just had to let that out there, because like just some of the new fans of Star Wars really piss me off when I see them in comments or any of their own brands. It just makes me mad.
It's one of those things.
Yeah.
But back to The Mandalorian.
Actually,
I kind of prefer season 1 over season 2.
I think you made a solid argument. Sorry that I interrupt. I just want to talk a little bit more in terms of, I mean, if you analyze The Mandalorian as Star Wars kind of product, let's say, or a new part of the story, I think it's very faithful to everything that's come, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I just still believe that they haven't gotten to the heights that people try to say they do. I consider The Mandalorian very much overrated. Sorry.
It's fine.
I mean, I've been watching it, you know. I'm almost finishing it up. I heard, obviously, the ending and stuff. The thing with the show is that it's still very compact with everything, and they don't actually get out of that Star Wars box. They still rely heavily on fan service, which is cool at times, but it kind of doesn't have the same essence as bringing new type of stories like Clone Wars or even Rebels did later on. I don't know. I'm there yet. I'm still not convinced. I would give The Mandalorian personally like a solid 8 for now.
Yeah.
Maybe 2.
I will say though that season 2.
I point coming into season 2.
Yeah, like I will say that when it comes to season 2 itself, that
I'm almost finishing season.
Yeah, season 2 kind of relied a little bit more on the fan service than season 1 did, which again, not a bad thing so long as you make it seamless, more natural, and more important. And thankfully, the fan service we got was mostly just Boba Fett, Ahsoka, and of course, the return of Luke Skywalker, which we'll get to in a bit.
Yeah.
But like,
Yeah.
the introduction of those characters was pretty good, and the fact that they were involved in the storylines without just being all like, "Oh, hey guys, we got these old characters back. Please watch our show." They were pretty much sounding more like they were saying, "Here's the return of some old characters. I'm pretty sure you've missed them, but they're back and they're ready to enjoy one other adventure in this sort of media." If that's what they'd say if they spoke in a sort of language like that. But yeah, Boba Fett's inclusion, I mean, admittedly kind of expected because Mandalorian stuff. But hey, it turned out better than I thought.
Yeah.
Ahsoka Tano, I liked her. I mean, kind of trippy seeing her in live action after being used to her animation self, but it worked quite well. I mean, I remember her being described as a character that would be more than just an exclusive to the Clone Wars series, but someone that would fit in any other universe. And while, yeah, it's kind of like unusual to see her in this sort of format or style, considering the fact that we're more used to seeing her in animation. And of course, we've never seen her in past media, but she works well. And Rosario Dawson's performance, pretty good. No, she seems less like a.
Even for all her screen time from the episode, she still kept true to the character, even if it was just the one and likely one and last appearance of her. So I mean, we do know that the Ahsoka series is coming in, right?
Yeah, which
Yeah.
again,
So
kind of cool,
so
but
we'll
don't
pretty
really
much
need
see
it.
more.
Like, I probably watch it again for cherry picking reasons, also because I like the character Ahsoka.
Yeah. She's great.
But yeah, she was fine in the series. She was great. Boba Fett was pretty cool, although expected. Luke Skywalker being in there was both cool but also concerning. Cool in the fact that we get to see him again in Return of the Jedi style, back to his young self, holding Grogu. Seemingly a series finale, although I'm pretty sure it's going to be a season 3 at some point. And it felt great to see that just more natural Luke.
Yeah.
There's some problems, though.
Yeah.
Do you guys know what the problems are? First problem, again, CGI recreation. Maybe I might have missed a detail.
Okay, yeah. I wasn't keeping that thought with Luke in the case of Mandalorian, but yeah, of course, another CG face rehash that they had to do similar to Tarkin and similar to Leia. But like the thing, because I was trying to find out what it was like really behind it. I mean, like all I remember like hearing about was how they actually had Mark Hamill. Like I think he came in as reference, like standing as Luke. But then of course they had another body double that was in the right height and age as Luke, as Mark before from Return of the Jedi. But of course they had to take Mark on set for reference to try and make sure they get his facial detail, his pores, and everything when it comes to the lighting and everything that was placed in right. Even though we know how iffy it looks, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But at least, compared to Tarkin and Leia, this was not as bad as those two, because with Leia, it was kind of wrong timing considering the stuff that we got. But Tarkin was more concerning because, I don't know if they got the compensation or the family if it's got compensation. At least with Mark Hamill, he's happy to return, and hey, he's in a much better bit of Star Wars media than what we got for the movies.
Yeah, that's greatly said, though.
But there's another problem that needs to be brought up, and that's the fact that as a result of this, assuming they don't try to erase the canon, knowing that, I'm pretty sure they might not, who knows. But considering the fact that Baby Yoda, Grogu the child, is now with Luke Skywalker, all that sort of praise and all that sort of oohs, ahs, and ahs, and oh, so cute, it's going to be washed away in the toilet because Grogu might get killed by a grumpy Luke Skywalker. like in The Last Jedi, or Kylo Ren, or whoever the fuck did this sort of destruction in the Jedi Temple at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Mm.
didn't think this through, huh, Disney?
Yeah, just a lot of pieces that just they dropped off, and now they have to try to find ways, maybe in the future, for the other series, or even more with Mandalorian, how they're gonna pick it up to really align with where Grogu was in all that case, with like the storyline from Luke, like training his own generation of Jedi with Kylo included. So that really
Yeah.
brings it a lot more difficult with where was Grogu in this time. So now
Hey.
we're gonna have to expect
Yeah.
where could Grogu be
Yeah.
later on, unless they
Hey.
do bring him back for maybe
Yeah.
season 3 or maybe even season 4 if the Mandalorian keeps going.
Yeah, hey, maybe
Yeah, well,
like we'll probably get some
season
sort
three,
of obligatory scene that has Kylo Ren like spinning around in a lightsaber like a fucking helicopter, Luke Skywalker running away like a Flintstones character, while Grogu just runs away in his ship and escapes. Because of course they do something like that. If they were make like a Grogu or Baby Yoda or the Child series in the vein similar to the goddamn Groot series, and I think that's all we got to say about the Mandalorian, which admittedly now just gets a lot of praise because of course it is, whether it's from the quality, the fan service, or the Child or Grogu or Baby Yoda, whatever you want to call him. I'm just gonna call him Green Turd. But yeah, Mandalorian, pretty good series. Like you can definitely tell that Favreau had a lot more, enthusiasm in making the series in a way I haven't seen since his involvement with the first Iron Man movie, which still to this day is a pretty damn good movie compared to what we get nowadays. But But unfortunately, we cannot talk about the first Iron Man, and we have to instead talk about the Rise of Skywalker.
Oh crap. Let's get this on. Let's just get on with it. Of course, there's a lot to think about.
Yeah. Well, did they succeed in making a conclusion to this series? Sure, they did. But was it good? I don't think so.
I think it's probably the most disappointing Star Wars movie ever made.
Yeah.
It's by far the most. It's just one of the most worst attempts, even making just a Star Wars film as a whole. Like it just came to a point where JJ and Chris Terrio, which I don't even know what Chris Terrio in his time with Ryan the Screenplay was thinking with JJ. I don't know how they could have made something that was just so obscure and just so aggravating to even still think about.
With J.J. Abrams, you expect him to make it similar to Return of the Jedi, trumping and other stuff to make the fans love it again. I don't think Chris Terrio was involved with this because Chris Terrio's
he
is
was
very specific. I don't think the writing in that movie is in any way used for stuff like this. I mean, obviously, we all know that he wrote Batman v Superman, which is written differently from The Rise of Skywalker. Also a better movie by a long shot. Way better movie.
Yeah.
But
way better.
Aside from that, what other movies has Chris Terrio written that also don't match up with The Rise of Skywalker's writing style?
Argo.
Yes. Sure, you can say that stuff like this wouldn't match up with Rise of Skywalker because that's what he was supposed to have done. But at the same time, you'd expect there to be a bit more better quality control if you got Terrio involved. Considering the fact that he's top notch, and you get stuff like this, I'm just wondering if is he even involved at all. Like maybe he just told, "Hey, we're going to use him so he can get some attention," but
I doubt it.
Not really use it.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess it was just his way, because I guess it's a funny thing that I want to say about Disney too. They have a lot of it's all a suspicion with them in the case of being aware of who they cast, either if it's for those behind the scenes as director or as a writer, or just those that are being part of the cast for actors, and they always have the scope of that person if they have either such a high public standard, if they're really a growing celebrity, or if they have some gold with them. And in the case of gold, I think they really got Chris Terrio in the case of him being an Academy Award screenplay writer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just my idea for why they even brought him in. Us really realizing that Chris Terrio honestly wasn't really that involved as Disney wants us to think that he was with writing, but when really it was just whatever comes into their mind, let's just write it into the paper.
Yeah, which didn't go as well as planned, I might add.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lines like They Fly Now is just kind of, yeah, definitely not Terrio's work. They just,
And another line that just completely defines just how mind wrecking it is for the idea of how they can even set up a good conclusion. Somehow Palpatine returned. What?
yeah, the dead speak.
The dead speak.
Yeah. Which sounds a bit funnier when I'm watching a Dawson Rider video than it is watching Rise of Skywalker. But
Yup.
going into this conversation, like, okay, like when I first heard Palpatine's laugh in the movie, like in the trailer rather, like, yeah, it was kind of cool because, you know, like we all love Palpatine, obviously, like he's a great villain.
Of course, he's one of the most. He's one of the most like a mix of overrated, underrated. He's just one of the most defying characters of the concept of evil. He is the embodiment of evil. He is the character that any of us grown up, or even just us growing up, can just think about as what do you define as a true classic film villain, Palpatine. And with what JJ had done in for him bringing him as just another old evil man that just has a black robe and just has a menacing voice with lightning flashes coming in like it's a horror film. Like, that is not what Palpatine was in any case, both original films and the prequels.
Yeah.
And I don't know how he could have even forgotten that piece.
Once again, I think they brought him in for the fan service stuff. I mean, it's kind of funny we went this far into the conversation, yet we barely even mentioned Snoke. Oh yeah, Snoke!
Oh yeah.
Remember him in The Force Awakens
Isn't it
when I thought he was gonna be like
crazy
this
how we
big
forgot
giant?
that much?
Like, you know, maybe he could have been like a second-rate Palpatine,
Yeah.
but like,
I was gonna mention him for the cons in The Last Jedi. Like, I was gonna say,
About Snoke.
like he
No.
was so
and
forgetful.
Like,
Like he was so goddamn forgetful. I'm just remembering him now. Yeah.
It's just that thing about it too, because JJ really did have a setup, I guess, for what Snow could have been if he did kept directing, like with him being part of episode 8. But yeah, instead of that, with Ryan Johnson having to literally slice him in half, having to end off his perfect setup for him being part of the final conclusion, being the main baddie, the main leader of this great first order, of this great fascist regime that he grown from the ashes of the empire, but yet he was just another rehash of the emperor. But worse than that, he was a clone by Palpatine.
My God.
Cap.
Of course, like, I know for a fact that they got stories like this where Palpatine clones him himself, which is already questionable enough. But like the fact that we found out about it now, ridiculous.
Redonkulous.
Like it's stupid, and
Mm.
it definitely just gives you like a bit of a slap in the face. Like, yeah, sure, it's cool that he's back, but was this the best they can do?
Even when the Star Wars celebration, right? With Ian McDermott coming in after they actually played, like when they played the first trailer, like the teaser trailer of Rise of Skywalker, and when he came in, and it shocked everyone. I mean, it really shocked everyone just hearing his evil laugh, right?
Yeah.
And it was like, that's Palpatine's laugh? What? And then you see the title, Rise of Skywalker, and he comes in as Palpatine's voice, roll it again. Like, just like, Disney, you brought him to destroy him again?
Like, yeah, it was kind of exciting at first, but then I realized about the fact that, the outcome could be different. I mean, what could happen next. And yeah, definitely not what we wanted in mind. Or maybe not
Ye-
what they probably thought of in mind. Like, it just feels like it's just them trying to, like, throw shit on the wall, see what sticks. You know, the writing is on the wall. We got to definitely close this up. Like, hopefully people like it and just run to your bunkers and hope that nobody bombs the studio. And I don't want to say like that and make it seem like a threat, but yeah, it's just, it doesn't sound any good. But hey, you know, Disney, they wanted to try and get fan service out with as much little effort as they could. Basically, rush it out there, hope people like it, and yeah, Palpatine's involvement in the film was kind of cool, but at the same time, once again, was it really the best they can come up with?
It's just one of the beyond worst things, the worst concepts that Disney could ever even think of from this whole franchise. It's just it's like the Rise of Skywalker is the film that really defines Disney's the brain washing of the own self. Just seeing how messed up their planning was just for even a simple outline. For the fact that because we already know like about the Bob Iger's book, right? About like how he
Yeah.
talked about the history that he had making the deal with George Lucas for buying Lucasfilm.
Yeah.
And there was like a mentioning of like from one of the chapters when he was talking about it of how he felt that he betrayed them, just out of buying his outline, like the ones that George made for him, and then like the fact that like Disney just threw that like we'll buy your outline, but we'll just keep it away and just do our own thing. That kind of betrayal is just honestly painful just thinking about it and just like thinking as to how like this man, this legend of a film director, this iconic being that had brought so much like creativity, so much heart into this creation that he has with the franchise, and how it got thrown away by this big corporate business that was so keen on bringing the best entertainment, but yet brought the worst product in the end. It's just sad as to how the planning was.
Yeah, pretty much like what else can you expect from Bob Iger? You know, you got like shit scenes like him, and pretty much a lot of other people that run Hollywood these days are just obsessed with the money instead of the people involved. Warner Brothers. But yeah, definitely like some cute stuff in the face with Bob Iger and other turds like him. There's other stuff that we can complain about with the Rise of Skywalker that, like, okay, Rey pretty much gets all the spotlight. Everybody else, it's you in a step in the face.
She literally, she becomes just not only like the most overpowered Jedi that we've seen on screen since 1977. She literally is, side quotes, all the Jedi.
Yeah, which on paper sounds cool. Like, it would be kind of nice to see like the Jedi show up and assist her, or have Finn
which
involved.
would have been probably one of the best endings that Disney could ever think of in the case of any of the Star Wars films that they've done. It would have been nice seeing like in the Force Ghost form of each Jedi that was trying to connect with Rey after when she was in the moment of defeat from Palpatine. I mean, it's cool that we hear their voices, knowing that they are trying to bring their connection to try and like get Rey to stand back up to try to stand against Palpatine. Like that was pretty like promising. Like that was pretty positive. In that case, it was inspiring. But they just didn't really bring that honor if they couldn't actually bring them.
Yeah, it kind of felt more like once again fan service just for the sake of it, without really making it all that fulfilling. And of course, you go into the stupidest lines ever, that being the fact that it pretty much copied Endgame's line. It's just
I was gonna mention too. It was I just wondered if like some of the Disney executives just looked over at Christian Marcus and Stephen McFeely's screenplay and just thought, oh, that was pretty cool. oh, I'm not sure with JJ, and boom, that just comes in with, I'm all the Sith, I am all the Jedi, just like,
I am
Disney,
inevitable and I am
I hate
Iron Man. Like,
yeah.
you know, like I already mentioned, I don't like Endgame, but how many? You really have to force us in that you have both of these franchises, right? Disney, like, fuck you, Disney, stupid shit.
The fact that they can make one of them right, no, like the sad fact, just out of the end result from Rise of Skywalker, that they've just shown like how bad it was. They made it to a point where even the Marvel franchise is greater than the Star Wars franchise. Or at least
Yeah,
in the efforts that they've done in the Star Wars franchise. Not the whole thing. Obviously, Star Wars tops Marvel. But just with what Disney has done with the sequel trilogy, with even the spin-off, Marvel just topped it like from its own way. It
Yeah.
just risen. It just became the highest standard.
yeah, it's kind of sad when you have to mention that, especially considering the fact that we kept on getting rubbed in the face with back then. Endgame got a lot of money and be Titanic and Avatar. Hoo hoo hoo! All hail this fucking stupid corporation. But
Let's go. Top box office in the world.
the fact
I'm the king of
that,
the world.
like, it's one thing if this line was copied from another movie, like if Marvel wasn't owned by like Disney, and if like let's say like Avengers Endgame was distributed by Fox, in a timeline where Fox is never bought by Disney and Disney never bought Marvel, like okay, it'd be one thing if Endgame copied a similar sort of story structure with, and like, or if Endgame had its line copied from Star Wars. But the fact that it was by both companies, or both movies are distributed by the same company, just feels like a huge slap in the face. And yeah, that's just pretty much made me think, yeah, no more, please, no more. And
No more.
yeah, there's also a lot of other stuff that I could complain about with Rise of Skywalker, like so much other stuff that's worth bringing up. But like most of it is just with the frustration of how they handled Palpatine and like how they handled Rey.
And they handled her in just a sad sense. Well, yeah, sad, but yeah, sad, and disappointing. Just how they couldn't even really like. It really just shows too how out of mind JJ was in the process of just writing like for the film. Because there was an interview I think I remember like a little while ago, like from this year with Daisy.
Oh damn! I'm pretty sure there's like a lot to talk about, but like yeah, adding on to what Eternal was saying, it's pretty much a mindset about just how like they once again threw shit on the wall to see what will stick, or they knew that the writing was on the wall, so might as well just throw it out there, just get this movie trilogy done, and say goodbye. Like, obviously, it looked like they try to make it look like it's some sort of a big accomplishment, but at the same time, I think the cast would rather be happy with just talking about why they're better off not being involved with the franchise like this again, or being involved with a franchise like this again. And man, we talked a lot, and my mind is just everywhere when it comes to this stupid movie. Oh, there you are again.
I just disconnected again.
Well, I think we pretty much got an idea of what you're saying. You know, the cast wasn't happy about the movie, and I can't blame them.
Yeah.
On a side note, the fact that like all this other stuff that they got, like all the other characters, like just like they didn't even feel like they were used as much, you know.
They couldn't really even complete there wasn't even an arc for like any of the main three that they couldn't really complete. But, like I was saying before,
I see what you mean, because yeah, it's like okay, like Finn had some sort of character development, but all he mostly does is just say Rey, Rey, Rey. Like, give the dude something else to do. Like, I wish he was a Jedi so he could have got more character development. Now, would the movie have been better if he replaced Rey as the main antagonist? Maybe not, but at least he would have gotten more stuff to do than just yell out Rey all the time.
right.
On top of that, there's
It was
also
a really good setup with what they were doing in the Force Awakens. Both Ray and Finn and JJ honestly did have great ideas, right? Like for example, like with Finn being a stormtrooper that was about to defect from like the First Order, and he was about to make his own journey to try and not serve for those that are trying to bring like the most violence to the galaxy. He's trying to make sure to
yeah.
live out the best life, and he did that, meeting Ray, leading him to the Resistance, and having his calling, and like it was shown like pretty well, even from the Last Jedi, even with how bad it was from his story, with how little he had, just from the final battle to with Last Jedi, like it just shows that he was determined and he really decided of knowing where his purpose was, and it was to really fight for the good side of the galaxy when he was about to make the sacrifice, which of course subverted dumbfully. And
Of course.
and now with Rise of Skywalker, with just him like having to be downgraded more than we thought, just being the most overused Rey simp of all time. It was just a sad result for that. And so for Rey's case, with her having parents that left away, and then it brings the question: who's Rey's parents? Who's gonna come and and bring her back? To the Last Jedi saying, nope, you have no parents. I mean, your parents dumped you, and then they were just a bunch of junk traders. And now it goes back to, oh no, they weren't junk traders. They were really the one with your dad was a child of Palpatine, and your mom was really the one that was trying to escape from some Jedi killer. And they got killed because of Palpatine, because Palpatine wanted Rey to come back and to become Empress. It just goes back and forth out of no good context.
Right. And of course, there's even stuff like, the way the relationships work, because, Rey sort of have feelings for Kylo Ren, and considering the fact that Kylo Ren is a Skywalker and apparently Rey's a Skywalker too, Jesus Christ! This makes me wish that
it's cringe. It's a cringe thought.
Yeah, aside from all the Sweet Home Alabama memes you can make, it also hits home with the fact that Finn should have been the one that Rey fell in love with throughout the series. They had all the potential.
Ever since day one, I've been hoping for them to align, to just at some point try and further in the relationship and become the couple. Like if only they had Rin, or whatever name you could call them, Rin or Faye. If they just had a connection, which we know they did, but if they had a chance to have a relationship, it would have been just the most appropriate choice to make for their story.
Yeah.
They found each other in the worst points of life, and they ran to escape, to save their life, and they had this whole new journey where they both met the Resistance, and the fact that they were going to have their whole life set up into having to fight the First Order together, and that just would have been perfect. But no, they had to, I guess, establish Rey with Kylo and having to make some connection out of the strength with the Force, and then Rise of Skywalker all of a sudden has to call a dyad in the Force just because of him being a Skywalker and Rey being a Palpatine. That there has to be some real prominent connection. It just doesn't work.
Yeah, but you know what the worst part is?
Yeah.
This is just hypocrisy on Disney, because they act like they want to fight for diversity, female representation. The Force is female, adding characters of color, which we already got stuff like that.
I know, I hate that.
And in the original trilogy, we had Lando Calrissian, who was cool, although here they made him sort of the sort of character that would have allegations against him. Is it me, or did they write him as almost like Bill Cosby in a way? But
kind of in the fashion, I sometimes I have similarities watching him as just a run of Cosby, but honestly, they still kept his character well oriented. George made sure he was written as different, but in ways similar in the smuggler sense of how there was a relationship from the past between him and Han.
Like in Rise of Skywalker.
He kept that.
Yeah, like in Rise of Skywalker, I definitely got like Bill Cosby vibes from him in some ways, which something I don't want to say, but knowing Disney, pretty sure that was their intent. But in the original trilogy, Lando Calrissian was cool. In the prequel trilogy, we had two cool black characters. Now, of course, they weren't the leads, but Captain Panaka and Mace Windu were both characters I can recognize quite well. Now, obviously, Mace Windu got more attention because Samuel L. Jackson, but those two were pretty much like signs that even if they weren't the main leads, they were at least serious characters that you can respect, no problem. Also, something that also amusing how people that like complain about Jar Jar Binks for looking like or acting like a black stereotype probably forgot about Mace Windu and Captain Panaka being cool characters that definitely support the black community by representation.
But which they brought a lot better in the sense compared to how Disney did with Finn.
Yeah.
Since they just completely shunned him out while having Mace, of course, being a member of the Jedi Council, him being one of the main the main Jedi warriors of the time with the prequels, they actually gave him importance for sure because his character has a place of importance within the story, so that makes sense. But even with Finn's case, they still could have brought that same level with him becoming part of the Resistance, but they just done him dirty.
Yeah, like first of all, he didn't get to be the Jedi we're hoping for despite all the merchandise. Like, sure, it was a surprise, but like at the same time, I'm just like left wondering. Wait, I thought you wanted to support actors of color, and of course, it was handled in the other films, and it was just super disappointing. But also concerning was the fact that Disney despite being obsessed with diversity, didn't even like have Finn and Rey in the couple, as we mentioned. Instead, we have Rey singing with Kylo Ren, the psychopath, and of course, they're both white. And I'm not trying to act like I'm complaining about a white couple, but come on. Like you were saying, you go from saying, "Oh, like these two are going to be like have a special bond," then you say stupid shit like, "Oh, well, no, never mind." Like Kylo Ren and Rey are actually in love with each other, and of course, you don't realize about stuff like the Sweet Home Alabama stuff, which, and of course, movie ends off with Rey saying, "I'm Rey Skywalker," with not a great way. And
Rey what? Rey what?
I beg your pardon. I beg your pardon.
Rey.
That's just my.
Rey Mysterio. Yeah, it would have been better off if she actually said that.
Rey Sue.
Rey Sue, yeah, that's better. That's a better one.
Yeah. But overall,
it was painful.
Yeah, by far, it just felt like I just felt like I'm just pretty much done with Star Wars at this point. And I don't care if people say like, "Oh, like Star Wars fans hate Star Wars more than anyone else," but like, that's just an example of why we don't like stuff like this. I mean, sure, you can complain about us for liking other stuff that isn't quite what we'd expect, but at least they don't try to insult the audience. Whereas this movie, it felt like it was just making fun of fans by saying, "Oh, you want this stuff? Too bad. We're pretty much taking it away from you, replacing it with something worse." I'm not.
And it's already too late to a point now. Like they can't restart or make a whole refresh of everything they've done since 2015 for the trilogy. They can't redo their mistakes and try to make a better trilogy to try to end off the whole Skywalker saga. What they've done is part of it now. Everything that has been made, what we have witnessed from our eyes, it's canon, and we have to accept that now, which is just the sad fact. Unless they find some way to alter it, but until then, the only people that we can depend on is those that should have been brought in charge in the first place. Maybe, hopefully, they'll just make Dave Filoni as president of Lucasfilm, which could have been the best choice many years ago, but they ruined that opportunity. But at least we have a positive future to look at, knowing what Dave and John is gonna bring.
Yeah. But that being said, I don't really need them to redo the sequel trilogy. Because there's one thing I've learned throughout this discussion and throughout the years of Star Wars hype that has dwindled immensely. There's one thing I learned. It's the fact that I shouldn't let the hype always be what controls my opinion. You know?
And just with even just to push, even just to give more of an idea of how little like Disney has fallen off, that spark that lights the fire that burns the First Order that they were trying to make in Episode 8, that great spark that Disney thought they were about to help ignite to make a great flame that was going to shine across the world, showing how wonderful the franchise was. Yeah, it died.
Yeah.
It died
Thanks to
like
the thanks to Ryan Johnson putting it out with like a bunch of blue titty milk. But
Yeah, he really
like,
took out that spark with all that great alien milk that Luke
subverting
was so
expectations.
desperately needing for that healthy calcium.
subverting our expectations and our hope of the franchise. But yeah, like
Great
I'm
job,
pretty sure
Disney.
people are going to see us as like the next sort of
Give you applause.
geeks and gamers or Star Wars theory as YouTubers that criticize the franchise. But like, I can appreciate Disney's handling of Star Wars for one sole reason: the fact that it actually made me realize that I shouldn't even have to like delve into the hype constantly, as I mentioned earlier. Like, if I actually was like somehow proud of these films, I probably wouldn't have liked the stuff I actually did like. I probably wouldn't have liked
Yeah.
the prequel trilogy or the original trilogy. I probably would have been like the Raylos, and even extends to other stuff that I like as well. If I was letting Rotten Tomatoes dictate my opinion or what nerd websites would say about what I should and shouldn't like, I probably wouldn't love the Star Wars prequel trilogy, obviously, but I probably wouldn't have loved the Sam Raimi Spider-Man trilogy or any of the other Marvel movies because they're not the MCU, therefore they're not good according to the internet in terms of critics and the people that claim to like Marvel, but only by collecting Funko Pops. If it weren't for my own gut seeing what I should and shouldn't like, be my own thing instead of like the nerd culture thing, I probably wouldn't have loved Michael Bay Transformers. And it would also remind me that stuff like this would have prevented me from continuing liking other stuff that I enjoyed. Nerd culture would only say like only the 90s or like the original version of stuff was good, like Mighty Morphin's the best, or stuff like fucking another example would probably be like, oh, these old TV shows are good. But like, there's stuff you can enjoy nowadays, but I'd rather just stick with my own gut,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, especially considering that there's plenty of things that I grew up with, and I'd rather stick with them, even if they're not perfect, than go for a Rotten Tomato score or go for praise that's done by smug critics that only care about what you think if you give them like some retweets or support their content or donate them or give them Funko Pops, which no thanks.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm just out of that motivation with it.
And-
I personally one source whose name is Aaron Reviews.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, that little twerp is like the future of film criticism. Honestly, though, like unless you're doing it for like a hobby, I really don't care much about film criticism at this point. Film reviews have pretty much just been a joke. You just put up something like X is this or X is that, and you put up like a huge thumbnail on it, and that's why we made the JustUs Podcast. Like, we just want to like enjoy talking about stuff while being serious at moments. Like, make it friends, unscripted most of the time. Just make it like a chill talk where it's all just fun. We're talking about stuff we like, whether we like it or not.
Yeah,
And that pretty much concludes our discussion on Star Wars, which that was quite a bit. Admittedly, some of our guests have been able to like drop off, but hey, at least it's just the four of us. that stuck around because it was quite long, and
before the end.
yeah, it's quite the journey, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's like
Yes.
And just really how much this whole franchise has really changed way too many lives than we can count, and it's thanks to one man. But it's sad for the fact that that man's whole reputation, with him being so disregarded of what other decisions he's brought out of furthering in more stories to help really connect with what he already made before, meaning the prequels, and just seeing how much hate that goes on with that. But compared to what Disney has done with what we already mentioned about how negative their efforts was, we can at least appreciate, compared to what Disney has done, George has actually set a true filmmaking sense, a true storytelling idea for what he can do to continue on from the stories, and can actually bring a lot more sense and a lot more depth with his creation. And with what Disney had done with his own great mindset, they just flush away that out and just putting in their own great Disney brand starring in to make sure that it's a box office hit back to back. But yeah, it just became a flop, not only in just box office cases, but a flop in our hearts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And as mentioned earlier, I'd rather stick with what I love than stick with the hype, because next time people try and say stuff like, oh, Star Wars fans, like, you guys hated the prequels. I only hated them because I wanted to join the bandwagon, and I feel guilty of doing so. So yeah, fuck the nerds that made us delve into this sort of nonsense over the years. And I apologize to my own, to the things I love, because I'd rather be sticking with the stuff I got than just stick with what we're going to get in the future. But that being said, I don't think I'll be watching any of the new stuff that's about to pop up in the future, but I can at least cherry pick some stuff, and hey, if it's good, I'll like it, but at this point, I'm just burnt out on Star Wars. You know, it's kind of funny, like, 2020 is already just like a shitty year, and not even the Star Wars stuff that they put in the stores was able to keep me happy. Plus, it's also a much smaller rate than what we're used to.
Yeah.
But that being said, that pretty much covers our look at Disney's handling of Star Wars, aka grown men complaining about a franchise verified Twitter claims is for kids. And yeah, I kind of wish the guests were still with us, but hey, I can understand why they probably had to drop off because it's quite a long episode, and probably best for them to like just move on for themselves instead of just being reminded of the garbage that Disney's done, which is our job. That being said, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'll see you all next time in 2021 where we make another episode, probably just one. But remember, may the Force be with your mug.
Yo!